A young man suddenly transmigrated to the Great Zhou dynasty. His greatest wish was to be killed. Because after his death, he will become the heavenly emperor, the head of a region, but to die a glorious death. The man decided to wholeheartedly support the reigning emperor. He had to satisfy his addiction to being a loyal minister first. When he transmigrated, he also inherited the original owner's memories. Through the original owner's memories, he learned his current identity was an important official who held the Jade Seal of the current emperor. It is because all the previous emperors were incompetent tyrants, leading to the decline of the nation's fortune in this life. Become a puppet of the vassals. Today was the day that the Xianxia sect led the 6 vassal states, forced the emperor to grant lands. The head of the Wuhua men also spoke up. Your Majesty, our Wuhua men only request that the Li family's Jin Yang be granted the title of vassal. The Wuhua men will definitely do everything they can to help. Protecting Great Chu for 10,000 years, Ji Mingyue did not retreat, opening her mouth to refuse. Even though Li Jia Jin Yang made contributions. But it's not enough to make him a king. If he is crowned too hastily, how can the officials agree? How could the world agree? Xia Yuan sneered. My officials, what about the world? Our sect represents the officials and the people. The ministers behind echoed in agreement. They had no objection to the enthronement. Seeing the scene before him, the male lead couldn't help but feel indignant on behalf of the reigning emperor. Could it be that no one in the entire court was sensible? There was only one official who enjoyed the emperor's trust. He is one of the treacherous court officials, mute as a fish, yet he can still understand this. Because if I were him, I would not dare to speak up. But despite facing such pressure, Ji Mingyue still had no intention of giving in. She also took out the myriad words letter that she personally had someone collect from the Wei Kingdom. The things recorded on it. These are all tyrannical acts of the Li family over the years when they oppressed the common people. How can such a person deserve to be in theft? King Wei's face turned gloomy after he heard this. He also drew his sword from his side. The next second, the sword erupted in a fierce flame. Burned all the evidence of the Li family's crimes that Ji Mingyue just presented. After finishing, he gave the emperor a sinister smile, sarcastically remarking that the fire was due to his negligence. Your Majesty's myriad things have been burned to ashes. Ji Mingyue was also so enraged by Prince Wei's arrogant actions that she was speechless. Next, King Wei shouted, Your Majesty, please grant me the title of king. Other officials in the court also shouted in unison. We beg your Majesty to grant him the title of king. Seeing that the situation had been settled, King Wei took out the pre-written edict. He strode forward to present it to Ji Mingyue, then looked triumphantly at the officials behind him. Royal Astronomer, bring me the Jade Seal immediately. Your Majesty, please reconsider, thought Yi Ning when he heard him say that. After all, he had to die anyway. It's better to die gloriously than to live a life of betrayal. Having thought this through, Yi Ning roared at him, traitorous rebel. And you dare to rebel. Are you worthy of the former emperors of the Great Zhou dynasty? The young eunuch, eyes wide with astonishment, watched my unusual actions. Is it really Master Yi? So Mingyue was alone and desolate, her eyes red and swollen. So Great Zhou still has loyal officials. Then, the Minister of Revenue, Shangshu, strode forward and shouted. An insignificant minor official dares to speak so presumptuously. Yi Ning looked at the old man in front of him and asked who he was. The old man stroked his beard and proudly said, Minister of Revenue Senhaoren. Hearing his identity, Yi Ning pointed at his nose and cursed. Good Minister of Revenue. He must be a learned person, but unfortunately, all the teachings from the sages have gone straight to his dog's belly. Senhaoren was about to retort. Caught by Yi Ning, another rambling session is coming. You, as an important official of the imperial court. Not only did he not consider the court, but he also colluded with the rebels, forced the emperor to abdicate. Truly, all gods and men are enraged. They are even worse than beasts. You, cooperate with this official and speak. Get out of my way, don't defile my ears. Unexpectedly, when Minister Hubu heard Yi Ning say that, he suddenly vomited a mouthful of fresh blood. Seeing this, Yi Ning let out a sigh of relief. He hadn't scolded anyone in a long time. His ability to speak also decreased. At this moment, Wei Wang, who was standing beside him, drew his sword from its scabbard. She glared at Yi Ning with a fierce look. Do you think this king wouldn't dare to kill someone in front of the palace? Yi Ning laughed loudly. Instead of retreating, he counterattacked. Shameless villain! You brought your sword to the palace. Seems like you really want to rebel. Immediately, Yi Ning stood in front of the emperor. If you want to disrespect his majesty, you must step over my corpse first. To experience the feeling of being a loyal official, Yi Ning confronted the entire court of civil and military officials. He raised the imperial edict of the Great Zhou Emperor. Yi Ning's casual remark unexpectedly awakened the conscience of many readers. The court officials, who had been silent, started to speak out in opposition. The emperor's moonbright eyes were filled with emotion. Excellent, 1 billion officials. Great Chu will last forever. Finally, there was a loyal minister who was not afraid of death. Since she ascended the throne, although she had been patiently biding her time, how could she not desire someone like today, to stand out and shield her from the wind and rain? But how could she avoid revealing her true intentions? But to protect him, Wei Wang's momentum still continued to rise. You really think I dare not kill you? Yining looked at the sword blade close at hand, unafraid, and smiled as she asked him. So, King Wei was startled. Are you really not afraid of death? How can there be such a person in this world? He pressed his face close to Yining's, trying to find a flaw in him. Aren't you afraid of death? It's just for fame, isn't it? This king guarantees that even if you die, no one in this world will dare to offer sacrifices to you anymore. Regarding his words, Yining showed no fear, turned to the main hall and declared loudly. Why would you say nameless? History is the witness. Mountains and rivers are the proof. This sentence echoed throughout the grand hall. It was also spread outside the royal court, which even moved Confucius to compassion. In an instant, my voice reached the ears of countless people across the entire continent. All the scholars saw the light emanating from his body. Everyone found it hard to believe. The court officials looked at each other. The Confucianists had been suppressed by the immortalists for far too long. It has been a long time since I last heard such a brilliant discourse. I remember the time of Emperor Taizu, when great Confucian scholars emerged. We Confucian scholars also. He can determine life and death, slay demons. Why is he now in such a difficult situation? This man, though only a minor official, is so courageous and bold. The achievement the next day was, of course, not ordinary. Who would have thought that the person who just wanted to kill Yining was Wei Wang? He suddenly threw back his head and laughed loudly. He said, "Good," and sheathed his sword. Cao Cao's sword does not kill true heroes. Then clasped his hands to show respect to Yining, saying, "The Chu family situation is no longer the same, and time cannot be reversed. Why must you perish with the great Zhou dynasty? Why not come with me? I will surely wipe out the enemy." Yu Wenyan gritted his teeth as he welcomed Ji Ryue back. Someone dared to poach his people so blatantly, but with the current national strength of Great Chu, he couldn't make any promises to Yining. I can only pray in my heart that Yining won't leave. As an insider, Yining felt extremely confused. This scenario was different from what he had imagined. Immediately afterward, Yining added salt and vinegar, once again shouting loudly that he would absolutely never betray. "Feel free to kill or chop me up," King Wei asked again. "Why do you bother? Emperor Huangdi is stupid and cowardly. How can he compare to me?" But Yining ignored him and instead clasped his hands in prayer. The official, born of poverty, received the emperor's grace. Stepping into the court as an official, the tyrant on the golden platform discussed matters. He vowed to guide the emperor, willing to die for the king. After listening to Yining recite the poem, Ji Mingwei excitedly stood up. He secretly vowed to himself that today, he would fight tooth and nail. "I must protect you too." But Wei Wang turned away after hearing that. "Good poem. Today Chao Mao is tired and doesn't want to get involved in this anymore." Yining looked at Wei Wang's retreating figure. The minds of these high-ranking officials were all problematic. He was already this arrogant, but still wasn't cut down. Xia Yuan swaggered out at this moment. "You insignificant pests dare to speak so presumptuously here. I give you 3 seconds to hand over the jade pendant, or I will surely crush you." There was a blood stain on Yining's face, caused by the force of his strike. Yining stared at him and smiled. He took a step closer to him, Xianen wishing. "They treat mortals like dogs and pigs. Immortals are immortal, and the great Tao is imperishable. The immortal sects are the root of all evil in this world." These words also won the support of the officials, but they lamented that Yining was born at the wrong time. If in Taizu's era, he would definitely be another great Confucian scholar. At that moment Yining heard the whispers around her. A flash of green lightning suddenly appeared in Xia Yuanyi's hand. He shouted loudly and then turned to face Yining, the arrogant brat. "Die," just a few casual words from Yining. Unexpectedly, it caused the great Tao to resonate. Not only did it fail to achieve its purpose, but the path to death became even closer. It turned out that, in order to protect the great Chu from being divided, Yining defied danger and directly confronted that old cultivator. Just when he thought he was going to die, then a yellow shield blocked the old Taoist's attack. It turned out that the emperor, in order to save Yining's life, had not hesitated to use a national treasure. And the treasure also lost its last power. Shattered, immediately afterward, the emperor shielded Yining. Unlike his usual frail appearance, he spoke loudly. "Today I and Yi Khan, my king and his subjects, are united. If the true person wants to kill him, then please kill me first. As for the Emperor's play, Yining felt his blood pressure rising. You, this tyrannical ruler, are you insane? I'm trying to help you, yet you let me be stabbed in the back. Such wicked people exist in this world. Yining was about to speak when he was interrupted. Don't be afraid, Yi Khan. Today I will absolutely not let anyone touch you. Hearing him say that, Yining immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. I fundamentally don't need you to save me. The old Taoist saw Ji Mingdue's reaction and decided to leave Yining alone. He only required that His Majesty agree to bestow upon him the title of king, and that the young man kneel outside the Wuhua gate for 7 days to apologize, then he would spare his life. Otherwise, even if His Majesty can protect him in the palace. But it's hard to say once we're out of the main hall. Cui Minghua was about to step forward and argue with the old Taoist. Because he couldn't stand firm. He fell backward. Seeing that, Yining stepped forward to support the falling emperor. Seeing her face carefully made up with silk powder, Yining could not help but admire how beautiful her fiancé was. However, this beautiful sight lasted only a few seconds. Yining immediately let go of stepping back. But in his heart, a storm was brewing. No, this Han Quan is wrong. Something was wrong with Yining. Immediately after, Yining looked at his body with a contemplative expression. Could it be a side effect of transmigration? This made him start liking men. Then, Yining inadvertently glanced to the side, after seeing the little eunuch's face. He immediately turned his head to look at the others. Until he saw the other ordinary men, Yining did not feel a single tremor. His heart finally relaxed. Thank goodness he still liked women. He almost got warped by this tyrant. Then Yining started his quest to find a way to die. Your Majesty need not worry. I have long considered death as light as a feather. Then he pointed at the Taoist priest's head. Your Majesty, please do not agree with this old man's words. Once he is crowned king, it will certainly shake the foundations of the nation. If your Majesty truly agrees with this old scoundrel, the god of death does not close his eyes. If someone must shed blood for this, let me be your guide. And to make his words more charismatic, Yining immediately recited that famous verse. Since ancient times, who has not died? Only those who leave behind a pure heart will have their names forever remembered. But as soon as he finished speaking, a dazzling golden light suddenly emitted from his body. Right after that, 2 beams of light erupted from the house. Readers in the royal capital looked towards the exploding golden light. This is the projection of the sage. Ancient sages have manifested. There will definitely be a great scholar. A great scholar is about to appear. Is the era of readers coming back? Then 2 elegant figures appeared in the projection, murmuring to themselves. Renxing Zigu Shui Wuxi, Liu Shou Dan Xin Zhao Hanting. Life from ancient times, who has not died, a heart dedicated to the cause, shining bright forever. What a beautiful poem. It can be passed down for 10,000 years. A good poem can be passed down for thousands of generations. The next moment, a beam of light suddenly shone on Yining. He soon realized he had gone too far. Not only had he not killed, but also increasingly stronger. To prevent things from getting worse, Yining grabbed the old Taoist priest and pleaded. Jinren, please kill me now. However, Yining's actions frightened the Taoist priest, causing him to retreat repeatedly. This is Haoren Jingqi. Afterward, another lightning bolt condensed in his hand. If we let this little rascal continue like this, Confucianism will surely seize this opportunity to rise again. To ensure our grand cause is not jeopardized, this kid must die. Yining just wants to die. But it is getting stronger and stronger. He became not only a hero in the hearts of the people, and also gained a large group of fanatical fans. It turned out that just now, Yining casually recited 2 lines of poetry, but it triggered the literary aura. He also calls himself Kim Guang's special protective halo. Even if Yining stood still, it is also possible to kill the enemy. Yining watched the old Taoist be hit by the golden light back into the pillar. Suddenly felt nervous. Even the name of the high official standing beside him waiting to watch the play. Scared to pee his pants, this old man couldn't have died, could he? Yining was still waiting for him to take him to be reincarnated. Thinking of this, Yining waved his hand and shouted at him. Old man, your mission isn't finished yet. Get up and kill me! Kill me then you can die. Xiao Yuani had just woken up when she heard Yining's provocation. His face immediately changed color, sometimes purple, sometimes white. Immediately after, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Hey, brother. Brother, you can't do this. My great cause still depends on you. But Yining had not finished speaking. The old man had collapsed nearby. The officials cried out. Xia Yuani is dead! This is a big deal. Wu Huaman will absolutely not let it go. Just as Yining was still stunned, Wei Wang next to her suddenly stepped forward. With clasped hands he paid his respects to me. Sir Yi, I am greatly impressed. Immediately after, his cold gaze swept over the group behind him. He then walked out of the main hall without looking back. The emperor saw this scene. There was a bit of surprise, and then a loud shout. Yi Kang could rest assured, with me here, I will definitely not let the Xianmen sect harm you. Hearing the emperor say so, Yi Ning immediately turned around and told him. Don't worry, if it weren't for your cunning, I would have been reincarnated by now. He had taken charge of one region, Tan Dynasty. The little eunuch behind him hurriedly called out. Wait for me. The little eunuch caught up with Yi Ning, hurriedly giving him a thumbs up. Master Yi is truly formidable. As the saying goes, real gold will always shine. Why haven't we seen Yi Ning's brilliance before? He flatters me like that. Yi Ning immediately interrupted him. Now I just want to find a quiet place. Leave me alone. Upon returning to her residence, Yi Ning immediately. Let's start researching what the Wenqi Guanding actually is. Although he could feel the qi gathering in his body. But it didn't work. Also unable to abolish it. After understanding, Yi Ning walked out somewhat absent-mindedly. Although he didn't clearly understand what changes had occurred after all. But the only thing he knew was that he now wanted to die even more. As soon as Yi Ning went outside, the young eunuch from that morning came running over. Seeing him, Yi Ning was also a little surprised. It's so hot, are you just going to stand guard here? The little eunuch patted him on the shoulder and replied. I can guard the door for a hero like Master Yi. It is an honor for me. Yi Ning glanced at him, and went straight out the door. I've really let everyone down. He never thought he would become a hero, and the moment he opened the door, countless scholars surrounded the doorway. As soon as they saw him, they excitedly shouted. Master Yi, our role model! He is our idol. On the other side, the emperor anxiously asked the person next to him. Yi Ning's sudden fame will surely worry the immortal gate. I fear I cannot guarantee his safety. Hearing this, the old man took the teacup. Although we have always tolerated it for the sake of the great Zhou, I'm afraid we have tolerated it for too long. Lu Xun replied. Your Majesty, Yi Ning's appearance has given the people of the great Zhou hope. This also makes them aware that the great Zhou dynasty is not completely hollowed out. Therefore, Yi Ning, we must protect him. She is the most beautiful woman in the great Zhou. Yet, because the people were in suffering, she took upon herself the burden of the entire empire. However, the appearance of Yi Ning also gave her a feeling of being able to rely on, and determined at all costs, protect Yi Ning. Therefore, she specifically sought out Swixiang Lu Xun to discuss this matter. Lu Xun spoke frankly. Currently there are only two ways to protect Yi Ning from the immortal sect. One is for her, like an old official, to smear her own reputation, pretending to please the immortal sect and beg for forgiveness. Or make him strong enough to make Xianmen wary of 3 points. Ji Mingwei understood that, with Yi Ning's personality, it was certainly impossible to make him bow his head, but it seemed even more impossible for him to become stronger in a short period of time. At this moment, Lu Xun reminded. Your Majesty Ji Mingwei, have you forgotten that place? Ji Mingwei, reminded by Lu Xun, immediately said. You're talking about the Holy Institute. But quickly, Ko Min Noyet became disappointed. Deep Nin, despite his great talent, is too risky to go to the Holy Temple at this moment. She was worried that Yi Ning would be in danger. Lu Xun replied seriously, any test comes with risks, but also with corresponding benefits. That year, the god only broke through 3 levels and gained great benefits. If Yi Ning could break through more than 7 levels, Xianmen wouldn't be able to kill him so easily. However, Song Mingyue was still not happy. The challenge of the Holy Temple was extremely harsh. If her heart was righteous, even if she failed, it would not be too serious. But if one has evil intentions, they would only face a dead end. But Ji Mingwei quickly made a decision, but was interrupted by Lu Xun. Wu Huamen was recently busy organizing a ceremony to celebrate the patriarch's birthday. During this period, Yi Ning will be safe, so we still have enough time to challenge her. Ji Mingwei seemed confused. Did Lu Xun think Yi Ning was unreliable? Lu Xun shook his head, saying that it wasn't that he was unreliable, but that he was still too young. Young people are full of enthusiasm. He was still very young, he had met countless people. When he was young, they were all upright and unyielding like Yi Ning. It seems as light as a feather, but ultimately, it cannot escape the taint of the mundane world, becoming pragmatic and cowardly. But it's not their fault. Living a life, one is bound to experience all sorts of temptations. Therefore, I want to let him stay at the Chunfeng Pavilion to test him. Ji Mingwei immediately had an answer. It's the number 1 beauty, Xiao Tianshan. Back in the palace, Ji Mingwei took off her dragon robe. She looked at herself silently in the mirror. At that moment, a woman in a green dress and a mask appeared behind Ji Mingwei. Then he stepped up and removed the jewelry from Song Mingyue. You are wrong, Xiao Tiantian is not the most beautiful woman in the world. Your Majesty is the most beautiful woman in the world. It's a pity that such a beautiful Your Majesty can only admire herself. I wonder which man in this world is fortunate enough to witness it. As for Yining, after a night of contemplation, he realized he had thought of this world too simply. The rules of the Tianjia world were more unpredictable than he thought. He had tried to die several times, misunderstood as a savior. This also made him understand that they were not NPCs in the game, but living people with emotions. Unfortunately, he is just a passerby, not the savior they are hoping for. After that day, Yining became more determined to find her lost son. Yining opened the manor gate again, preparing to go out and find a new way to die. But what he didn't expect was that, early in the morning, the disciples and scholars had surrounded the door so tightly that even a mosquito couldn't get through. Right after that, Yining turned around and left without looking back. The servants in the mansion saw him as if he were a great enemy, and slowly said, "Young master, you must have done something terrible. The invitations to the Fu have already been piled up." And at this moment, the scholars outside the mansion were chased away by two men in black. A man in a green police uniform approached and saw the moss and weeds growing thick outside the Yining residence. Yi Huin was indeed as rumored, a noble and upright person. My admiration for him grew even more. Immediately after, a voice sounded from outside the door, the son of the left Prime Minister, Liu Chan. "Li Bui, Yuan Wei of the Three Privies, requests an audience with Master Yi." Hearing that the person outside the door had quite a background, Yining fiddled with his ear and scoffed disdainfully. "Who do you think you are? This young master isn't afraid of offending anyone right now." Unexpectedly, the servant approached and whispered in my ear, "Sir, you did the right thing. They say the left minister is a traitor. Everyone says they are involved. It would definitely not end well." Yining heard him say that. Immediately opened the tightly closed main gate. "It is Lu Gongzi, right? Please come in. We two brothers have to have a good talk today." The man wanted to die. Found the character E.G. To seek his own demise, he invited Lu Sanyuan into his house for a talk. "Sure," he said. "This is the first thing I want to say. His life is currently in danger." Hearing this, Yining's eyes lit up. Life-threatening. Such good news? Seeing Lu Sanyuan's dumbfounded expression, Yining hurriedly said that she just wanted to know the reason. Then he learned from Lu Tamwin's explanation. "Because you accidentally killed Xia Yuani last time, the Wu Hua men will send people to kill you." Thinking of that, Yining couldn't help but break into a joyful smile. Unexpectedly, this good brother, even after his death, still proved useful. Seeing Yining's excited expression, Lu Sanyuan also secretly praised him in his heart. Master Yi truly lives up to his reputation. A true warrior is not afraid of death. But right after that, he told him that Wu Hua men was busy organizing the ancestors' birthday celebration, so they would not take action for the time being. Hearing this news, Yining helplessly slumped back. "It's better to rely on oneself than to beg others," she thought. "It seems I have to do it myself." So, Yining turned his head to look at Lu Sanyuan. "Brother Lu, besides Wu Hua men, in the capital, there are certainly many important figures that we can't offend, right? Could you introduce me to some people?" Liu Sanyuan heard that. Immediately said she would definitely help him with this. "But if you want to socialize with the nobility, there is a place you must visit. I will take you to see it." And under Lu Sanyuan's guidance, we arrived at the famous Chunfeng Lu in the capital city. Yining stared blankly at the girls in flashy clothes in front of her. "This must be a brothel." Lu Sanyuan said the girls here were all beautiful, especially the 8 famous beauties in the capital. Naturally, this is also the best place to make friends. Hearing his explanation, Yining was speechless. He wanted to die. Make friends? Make enemies, maybe? Sensing my apprehension, Lu Sanyuan whispered to Yining, "There's someone in this Chunfeng Lu you absolutely must not offend." Hearing him say that, he looked at him in surprise. "Is there such a thing?" Then Yining followed him into the brothel. A girl immediately came out to greet him. Lu Sanyuan then instructed, "We have distinguished guests today. Bring out all the finest wine and delicacies of this place." And at this moment, a clear, melodious bell rang out. Only the stage of the Spring Wind Tower was surrounded by spectators, and continuously praised the artist's skill on stage. At this moment, Lu Sanyuan explained to Yining, "These are the 8 beauties of the Spring Breeze Pavilion. Countless people in the capital secretly admire them." Yining was rather surprised. So people in the past also knew how to enjoy themselves. So he pointed to the room on the top floor, presumably the residence of the 8 beauties. "But who does that tightly closed room at the very top belong to?" Lu Sanyuan seemed excited, saying that he finally paid attention. "That person is the one I told you not to offend. There is a Miss Xiao in Chunfeng Pavilion. Her status was exceptional, higher than all the other beauties. Moreover, she did not sell her art or her body. Only those who were exceptionally talented could catch her eye. Anyone who had met her was mesmerized, and Yining completely believed his words. After all, he's such a lecher. That says it all. But living in a place of pleasure, how could he keep himself clean? Hearing Yining's question, Lu Sanyuan looked serious and said to him, "This is the crux of the matter. Many people remember her, but without exception, they all died tragically. There are also rumors that she has long been the mistress of some important figure in the palace. The only chance to meet her is by using talent." Hearing him say this, a new way of seeking death emerged in Yining's mind. If he met this woman, he would surely die a terrible death. On the other hand, Emperor Xiao Xian was there when I arrived. She had noticed me, the maid said respectfully. "Your Majesty must hold Ji Dairen in high regard, otherwise he wouldn't have let Xiao Jia, the owner of Chun Feng Lu and the leader of Mi Dai Si, personally test him." Xiao Tiantian softly instructed the maidservant who had just reported. "Please send the invitation card to him for me." In the hall, Lu Sanyuan was explaining to Yining that to catch the eye of the campus belle, just having money wasn't enough. He must also have exceptional literary talent. But before he could finish, a woman stepped out into the middle of the hall, calling out in a loud voice, "Respected masters, our master has received an invitation." He just finished speaking. Everyone seemed agitated. After that, the woman looked at the invitation in her hand and asked, "Which one is Yining?" After hearing his name, Yining was stunned. But he quickly regained his composure. Heaven had shown him favor. He couldn't let this opportunity slip away. At this moment, a man suddenly stepped out. "Young Master Yi is truly elegant. I also admire him greatly. But speaking of talent, I'm afraid it's not as great as people have hyped it up. I am Tai Xianggao. Mr. Yi, would you like to have a contest with me? To admire the unparalleled beauty of the Flower Queen." Talented young people fought fiercely amongst themselves. However, Yining won the chance to meet the Beauty Queen with just one poem. However, the current Xuangyuan doubted his ability. Aggressively approaching Yining, he challenged her. Yining gladly accepted his writing challenge, letting him experience the 5,000 years of Chinese culture. However, when the others were almost finished, Yining was still pondering which great work of poetry she should use to win this competition. Seeing that he hadn't started writing, Tai Xianggao snorted contemptuously. Indeed, was this all the ability he had? Then, he picked up his brush and wrote beautiful poems on the painting. Everyone around was surprised to see the rays of light coming from the painting. He couldn't help but exclaim, "Half a poem reached the Fu, truly deserving of the title of Xuangyuan." Holding a pen is akin to reaching the realm of Dufu. It turns out that in this world, poetry is divided into 4 realms: Dat Fu, Min Chao, Tran Quoc, Truyen Tien Ha. But when Kai Xianggao finished writing the last character, he has not yet reached the realm of Mingzhu. Immediately afterward, he mocked Yining, saying Lord Yi still hadn't put pen to paper. Could it be that inspiration has run dry? Unable to write anything, Yining realized she was the only one who hadn't finished the test. A slight smile played on his lips. It's time to show off. Yining didn't know that Xiao Qianshan was upstairs, observing the competition below, and placing a lot of hope on him. But he didn't pay any attention to that. On the contrary, Yining dipped her brush onto the painting. In the blink of an eye, the great sage, equal to heaven on the painting, glowed with a brilliant golden light. All the scholars around exclaimed in admiration at his calligraphy. Powerful and mighty, only Tai Hung Chao was sweating with fear, because he had realized. This font is different from the long-established fonts of the Great Zhou dynasty. It is a unique style of calligraphy, but he quickly denied it all. This competition is not about calligraphy. What's the point of writing beautifully? But very quickly, disbelief was all that remained on Tai Xianggao's face. Because with just one sentence, I surpassed the profound meaning of his entire poem. But this is only the beginning. As his pen moved, masterpieces of poetry emerged. The sky outside the window brightened. This scene moved the surrounding scholars to tears. They witnessed a Min Chao masterpiece firsthand. They wouldn't regret dying. Even the 8 beauties of Qifeng Pavilion were captivated by Yining's poem. Want to dedicate everything, just to win his favor. Xiao Tiantian was also very excited at this moment. Could she reach the level of Zhenghua or not? Only the last sentence was missing. But Yining was immersed in the poem. He was completely oblivious to everything around him. He only felt a surge of power flowing from his pen, guiding him to complete the last sentence. And when Yining finished writing, the whole continent trembled at his poems. After finishing everything, Yining took out a handkerchief to wipe the sweat off her forehead. "Excuse me, Lu Yong, I borrowed your things to show off a little." However, the quiet atmosphere around made Yining start to doubt himself. Could it be that you were careless somewhere? Unexpectedly, a surge of intense emotion erupted in the otherwise quiet space. Feeling their eyes, which seemed to devour him, Yining felt a chill run down his spine. He was sure they were captivated by him. Immediately Yining hid in a room, but the pounding on the door reverberated from outside. Not only did women want to spend the night with him, that even men wanted to attack his anus. And the man who had just challenged Yining also realized the gap between us, respectfully bowing to Yining. Yes, talent. I admire you, Yining said to him sternly. He was actually quite good. After all, not everyone is like Yining, possessing 5,000 years of poetry, prose, and music. Lu Sanyuan, who had been silent for a while, suddenly called Yining, and respectfully bowed to him, wishing to have this poem of his. Seeing Yining agree without hesitation, Tai Shengao's eyes looked as if they were bleeding. Clearly I want to, too. At this moment, the door of the next room suddenly opened. A young woman in green handed an invitation to Yining. Our lady, please come up here for a moment. The most beautiful woman in the Great Chu played the lute for Yining's entertainment. But he didn't just say she played like garbage, but also taught her how to keep her distance from those who were not her equal. When Yining accepted the invitation from the beauty queen, he went to her room. Everyone there was not hostile to Yining. Instead, they congratulated him and told him he must win her. Yining clasped his hands in thanks, but his purpose wasn't cosmetics. He's about to go to the execution ground. I hope she won't be unreasonable. She must kill him. However, when she arrived at Xiao Tianshan's boudoir, she didn't want to meet Yining directly, and wanted him to hear her play a piece first. After some evaluation, on the other side, after obtaining Yining's poetry manuscript, Lu Sanyuan immediately wanted to leave. Just as he thought he was safe, Lu Zhu suddenly stopped him, at the same time reaching out to demand the thing he was holding in his chest. Faced with invisible pressure, Lu Sanyuan reluctantly handed over the scroll. He managed to save his own life. In the quiet boudoir, magical notes were playing. Lu Zhu hurried back and saw Yining listening attentively. He suddenly asked him what he thought of this piece of music. Yining rolled her eyes and replied without hesitation. What kind of instrument is that? Hearing that answer, Lu Zhu angrily pointed at me. If you don't tell me the reason today, I'm afraid you won't be able to leave Qingtong Lu. Hearing this, Yining leaned closer to her and asked. So how should I put it? Lu Zhu's eyes lit up with adoration. Naturally, it's praising my young lady's excellent playing. To please her, Yining reluctantly said playing the dan was fine, but before Lu Zhu could rejoice, he waved his hand again and said that he could only play the instrument. It's a pity there's no soul. Xiao Tianshan also stopped playing the dan behind the screen at this moment, and asked Yining what a soul is. Yining did not hesitate to show off his erudition, explaining to her that musical rhythm is inherently soulful. Its soul is half from the player, half from the music. Although her playing skills are not bad, unfortunately, this piece of music is trash. Xiao Tiantian tried to suppress her anger. He asked Yining in an annoyed tone. Is this music not good, Mr. Yi? Even Lu Zhu next to her joined the argument, scolding him about something he didn't understand. This musician was Ma Lao, the head musician in the palace and also the teacher of her mistress. This tune is a gift from Lao Mo to her daughter. Yining completely ignored the nonsense, bluntly stating that trash is still trash. Xiao Tiantian finally couldn't hold back her anger. Master Yi looks down on the zither like this, he must be a zither master. Then let this little girl broaden her horizons. Seeing her finally lose her temper, Yining was secretly delighted. He had never done anything without a purpose. But if the music you play is better, then throw away this tattered screen. Xiao Tianshan agreed to his challenge without hesitation. Seeing this, Yining walked to the zither and sat down. Well, I'll try my hand at this, he said. Yining has always been a lover of the zither. The ancient music pieces I have learned, any of them would be enough to beat this terrible piece of music. He gently plucked a few notes on the guqin to test the timbre, but this action was mocked by Xiao Xian. Yining ignored her mockery. He did have a voice after all. He began to play the dance skillfully. With each nimble movement of his fingers, wonderful melodies immediately resounded. In just a moment, Xiao Tianshan's face changed. With just a few short notes, she felt like she was in a forest. The next moment, another powerful force surged like a mountain and sea. There is such exquisite music in this world. She is known as the most beautiful woman in the Dezhu dynasty. She actively wanted to become Deep Ning's concubine. However, Yining did not agree to her request. He even shoved her away in disgust. It turned out that Yining only used a piece of music that even elementary school students could play. Having conquered Xiao Tian, seeing him stop playing, Xiao Tian immediately stood up and said, Why stop? Yining looked at the beauty behind the screen. She smiled faintly. Xiao Tian immediately understood Yining's intentions. At the same time, she bowed her head to apologize to him. I lost this competition. Hearing her say that, Yi Ning also had no intention to continue. Instead, he slowly stood up. Tell him, then please, miss, fulfill your promise. Take off your veil, though my dance skills aren't great. But this high mountain flowing water is truly a divine melody. Conquering you all isn't as easy as turning one's hand. Xiao Tiantian also had no intention of breaking her promise, so she instructed Lu Zhu to remove the screen. Xiao Tianshan faced a man for the first time. Also a little shyly peeked at Yi Ning. Very quickly, a strange ambiguous atmosphere appeared in the bedroom. After seeing her face clearly, Yi Ning was suddenly moved. This woman was so beautiful, certainly a big shot he couldn't afford to offend. At the same time, Xiao Xianxian was also thinking highly of him in her heart. She hadn't expected that the man who could compose such a magnificent piece of music would be so handsome. And the same words echoed in their hearts at the same time. This person, I must win her over. Time flies, and before long, night fell. Xiao Tiantian had made some progress with Yi Ning. Sir Yi, did you compose that piece of music yourself? Xiao Tiantian asked. Yi Ning replied. That piece of music was just a coincidence. Hearing him say that, Xiao Qianqian immediately pressed herself against his chest. Can this little girl see the music sheet? Yi Ning immediately made up a lie that even a dog wouldn't believe. He had used the sheet music as toilet paper. Xiao Qianqian said she regretted it, but in her heart she cursed him like a dog. At the same time, she was determined to make him lose face today. Then she pretended to be drunk, holding her head with her hands. Master Yi, I'm not feeling well. She said this and then collapsed into Yi Ning's arms. Seeing this, Yi Ning felt a pang of guilt, but still instinctively held her in his arms, constantly reminding himself in his heart, I just want to find a way to die. Not because of infatuation, but when he looked into her eyes, his heart still stirred a little. It was a pity for his right hand, which had been lonely for 30 years in his previous life. Soon, Yi Ning put everything aside, prepared to follow his instincts, die under the peony. The demon lord was also very charming. He then pouted and was about to kiss him. But before their lips could touch, Xiao Qianqian covered my mouth with 2 fingers. My appearance is ordinary. Has it really caught the eye of the Lord? Yi Ning smiled and uttered a deep confession. If you are ordinary, wouldn't all the other women in the world be ashamed and insecure? Then he regretfully turned away, only regretting that she was already the woman of a powerful man. We are definitely not fated. Hearing this, Xiao Tianshan was stunned. The woman of the powerful man, then she chuckled. Master Yi, you must have heard the rumors out there. That was just a rumor spread to mislead others. I am still a virgin. Yi Ning looked at her with a face as if she had just eaten something disgusting. He should have kept acting. It turns out there's no powerful figure. Then what else are you playing at? He pushed her away immediately, and clasped his hands, saying to her, Xiao girl, it's late. I'll take my leave. Seeing him about to leave, Xiao Qianqian hurriedly said, Although I don't know any influential people, I can bring you greater benefits. Actually, I am from the Rakshasa kingdom. Lurking in the capital is only to gather intelligence. He also recruited talents for Las Agua. Currently, the people of the Great Zhou dynasty are restless, and treacherous officials are running rampant. A talent like Grand Master Yi, why not abandon the dark and embrace the light, and wholeheartedly serve the Luo Sha nation with me? However, Yi Ning didn't pay attention to her. He pushed the woman away with one hand. Please respect yourself, Mississippi. He is not someone who wants to kill him. Isn't this a waste of your time? Xiao Tiantian was startled. His will was truly resolute. Then, Xiao Tianshan's eyes darkened. I don't believe you can withstand my next move. Next, a terrifying power exploded around Xiao Tianshan. Sensing this aura, Yi Ning couldn't help but clench his fists. But Xiao Tianshan had no intention of stopping, continuing. If you are willing to submit to the Luo Sha country, I vow to be your wife and walk by your side. Seeing this woman acting so arrogantly, a golden light suddenly burst forth from Yi Ning's body. Damn you! Get out of my sight! Men don't need a stunningly beautiful woman. He just kept thinking he could use his golden right hand to solve every need. It turned out that in order to catch Yi Ning in one fell swoop, Xiao Qianqian used all means to try to expose Yi Ning's true form. But his reaction surprised her. Despite using both beauty and money to tempt him, she couldn't sway him in the slightest. But that wasn't enough. She soon put on a gloomy expression, and continued, Master Yi really doesn't know what's good for him. Seeing that Yi Ning remained unmoved, a green light flashed in Xiao Tianshan's hand, and with lightning speed she quickly approached me, just as he thought he was about to die. Then Xiao Tiantian's finger stopped right before my throat. Master Yi, your strength is nothing but a thin sheet of paper to me. Hearing her threat, Yi Ning felt only joy in her heart. As the saying goes, Even when mountains and rivers end, there's still a village ahead. Or, behind a dark willow, there's another village. This is a perfect opportunity. You must seize it. Immediately, Yining made a look of resignation to death, cursing him. You foreign invader. Go ahead and kill me. No need for more words. Seeing Yining like this, Xiao Tianshan seemed a little embarrassed. I'll give you one last chance. But Yining had no intention of listening to her nonsense any further. A good general does not plan fortifications, he leaves that to the dogs. A true warrior does not regret his actions, he exhausts every option to survive. Hearing Yining's words, Xiao Tianshan was deeply shaken. Over the years, she had witnessed countless despicable villains, greedy for life and afraid of death, yet why could this person maintain his original intention so firmly? Rather die than submit. Confused, Xiao Tianqian asked loudly, why do other scholars betray the country and seek glory for wealth, while you are determined to die? Yining smiled and said to her, even if you surrender to the La Shagua, you cannot change the fact that you carry the blood of the Dezhu. If so, I will give Xiao Miss a sentence. Baselessness is the passport of the base, nobility is the tombstone of the noble. Although the great Zhou in your eyes is no longer hopeful, I don't think so. Make your move, I believe that what doesn't kill me only makes me stronger. At this moment, Xiao Tiantian finally recognized Yining's character, and said that he wouldn't kill him there. But don't be too happy yet. She poisoned his wine. Within 3 days without the antidote. You're sure to die, she said, then swung her hand, unleashing a burst of energy that sent him flying. If in these 3 days you change your mind, you can come to her anytime. Leaving her room, Yining looked around and assessed. This is where a spy lives? You are not afraid that I will report her? Then Yining shook her head and went down alone. But you were lucky. When they saw Yining smile as he stepped down, they rushed to congratulate him. Mr. Yi is indeed the first to win Miss Xiao's heart, they said. Yining smiled, not arguing with them. After all, he would be poisoned to death in 3 days. People can say whatever they want. Meanwhile, Xiao Tianxian, still in her room, couldn't calm down. She and Yining had always shared the same aspirations. But he was born for the light. Guide everyone forward. She's used to the darkness. So, let her take his place. Stop the demons lurking in the shadows. Then, Xiao Xianxian secretly sneaked into the palace, and reported everything to Tsingmingyue without missing a single word. Hearing Xiao Tiantian's explanation, Ji Mingyue was secretly delighted. Indeed, I haven't mistaken him, she thought. But Xiao Tianshan opposed letting Yining participate in their plan, simply because Master Yi had an upright personality. It is impossible to see the darkness, if you knew what we did. He might not be able to hold back and step out to clear our name. Moreover, the Great Zhou currently needs someone who can awaken the fighting spirit of the people. If so, Master Ye's life perhaps. Before Xiao Qianqian could finish her sentence, Ji Mingyue slammed the table and stood up. Who dares to touch him? I will kill that person. At the Yi Manor, Yining was drinking wine and singing loudly. Chirp, chirp, chirp. Our spring is coming. However, by the 4th day, I still showed no signs of poisoning. Then Yining kicked open the door of the Spring Wind Pavilion and said loudly, give me an explanation. However, upon seeing Yining, Xiao Tiantian did not show any surprise. She said that after that day, she came to her senses, so she surrendered herself and assisted the government in destroying the lair of the Luo Shagua. His Majesty took into account her timely repentance. So, let's not delve into her past anymore. But Yining was not interested in her story, and asked her about the poison. Hearing Yining's question, Xiao Tianshan smiled gracefully, saying that it was just a joke between her and Master Yi. Hearing her say that, Yining just felt that his sincerity had been misplaced. Yining was granted supreme power, standing above 10,000 people, second only to the emperor. But those around him looked at him with pity. Ever since he left Xuanfenglo, Dianing had been cursing the woman who had deceived him all the way. The servant in the house, seeing him like that, asked in surprise, what's wrong with Yining? He didn't answer her question, but slammed the door shut. This made the servant dumbfounded. Could it be that the young master has been tricked by a fox spirit? On the other side, Xiao Tianshan was looking at Yining. The sheet music you gave me, the more I appreciate it. It becomes even harder to let go, remembering the moment I showed it to my master. Master was fascinated by the rhythm and gave it the highest praise. Unexpectedly, even Master found it stunning. But looking at the information they had about Yining's past, he was, at best, an ordinary man. And that was precisely what made him extraordinary. Lu Zhu looked at her young mistress with some confusion. Xiao Qianqian smiled softly and slowly said, these poems and songs are just trifles to him. He has a heart that embraces the whole world. Ji was at Great Chu. Then she turned to ask Lu Zhu. How about the person selected to protect Master Yi a few days ago? Lu Zhu respectfully presented the candidate list. This person is currently the most suitable person from the secret spy department. Xiao Tiantian nodded, said nothing more and reminded Lu Zhu. Tell him to watch his mouth. The next day, as usual, Yining went to the imperial palace to attend the daily morning court session. He was still worried about his failed suicide plan. Then the little eunuch waved to him from afar that day. After meeting him, Yining also politely said good morning. Sensing the response, the little eunuch was overjoyed. Lord Yi is indeed different from others. He doesn't look down on me because I am from Yen. At the same time, she secretly vowed in her heart that if anyone wanted to harm Yi Dairen in the future, she would never stand idly by. However, Yining felt an inexplicable tightness in his chest. Could it be that he had been too ostentatious recently? Someone wants to bestow a star upon you. After ascending to court, Ji Minghua languidly declared, Your Majesty, there is no need to dismiss the court. After hearing this, a high-ranking official immediately stepped forward to report to His Majesty. Jianan fled, but didn't let the man finish. Ji Minghua impatiently said that she had no money. Then another man stepped forward and reported to His Majesty. The son of Duke Weiwu caused trouble, riding his horse wildly and injuring dozens of people. Just as she was about to say she had no money, Ji Minghua suddenly realized. It turned out it wasn't about asking for money. Then, she said that tomorrow she would send someone to remind Wei Wuho. He must strictly control his son. Regarding the emperor's actions, Yining was also somewhat speechless. Could someone be this confused? Truly, he did not expect this. Ji Minghua, sitting on the throne, was even more perceptive of Yining's expression. Yi Keang must be very disappointed in me. But I really have no other choice. If I want to achieve great things. If he didn't pretend to be a foolish ruler, how could he fool those immortal sects? After finishing the urgent business, the chief eunuch suddenly called Yining's name. Just as he was standing there in a daze, a young eunuch beside him chuckled and reminded him. Quickly advancing to take the lead, Do Yining is brave and fearless, with a heart devoted to the nation. Nei Feng worked as a Hanlin Academy censor of the patrol office. But after the court was dismissed, he suddenly realized the minister's gazes toward him were full of pity. The little eunuch immediately stepped up to his ear and whispered. It's all because of Master Ye's appointment as the imperial censor. It turned out that the procuratorate used to be a place that made corrupt officials tremble with fear. But since the disappearance of the former chief procurator, the procuratorate is now merely a figurehead. Because Minister Yi had previously offended the immortal sects, and now assumed the role of censor at the inspectorate, he could be said to be in grave danger. His life was in danger. After listening to his explanation, Yining was suddenly overjoyed. He loved this kind of dangerous place. He didn't expect the procuratorate to be such a good place. Initially puzzled, Yining now felt a surge of fighting spirit. The procuratorate was a good place to offend people. Wanting to die was just a momentary thought. The beggar girl in front of everyone turned out to be the beauty queen. He was the bodyguard assigned to protect Yining. Since Yining was appointed as the imperial censor, immediately went to the procuratorate to take office. But what caught his eye was an abandoned house. Just as Yining was still suspicious. Where had everyone gone that an old man came up to him and said, No one will come here for sure. Yining turned around and asked the old man if he knew where everyone here had gone. The old man grumbled to him. Besides brothels and pubs, where else can one go? Hearing the old man's every complaint, it turned out that these people really didn't do anything properly. But because of his reckless plan, Yining had to gather these people, otherwise he basically can't carry out the next plan. At that moment, Yining clearly realized it was a cold winter, but he didn't feel cold at all. He suddenly thought it might be due to the influence of the positive energy. Yining shook her head and muttered, It seems like I'll never die of cold in my entire life. But when he arrived at the gate of the mansion, he suddenly found that the old servant in the mansion had been waiting at the door for a long time. Realizing that something might have happened, Yining hurriedly stepped forward and asked. The old servant sighed and slowly recounted what he had just discovered. This girl fainted in front of our house again. If she hadn't been found early, she would have frozen to death. Master, please take her in as a maid. Let her serve you, consider it a way out for her. But in his heart, Yining completely refused. He couldn't treat a living person as a slave to order around. Then Yining went to the girl and asked her about her background. However, she was mute. It was completely impossible to talk. Seeing that, the old servant immediately whispered in my ear. This is a good thing. Thus, the young master will not need to worry about household secrets being revealed. The girl, as if realizing he had no intention of helping her, felt dejected and let out a few whimpers. At the same time, he wrote on the snow. Looking at the little girl's handwriting, Yining couldn't help but soften. His subordinates inquired. The little girl's name turned out to be Xianyuan. After bringing the little girl back to the mansion, Yining learned that Xian came from a scholarly family. It is a pity that her family's fortune declined and they encountered a famine year, having to join the refugees here. For this poor little girl, he finally decided to keep her. But if her family finds her later, you can go with them. Hearing him say so, Xian immediately knelt before him. Yining waved his hand, telling her there was no need for that, to go eat something and take a bath. Not long after, the old servant pushed open his door, bringing in a completely transformed Xian. When Yining saw Xian hiding behind the servant, he was also startled by her change. Unexpectedly, just taking a bath. And there was such a big difference. Then the old servant told him that from now on, Xian would take care of his daily life. After that, she transformed into a ray of light and disappeared before my eyes. I watched his back disappear, Yining's face full of bitterness. He had said he didn't need a maid, but this old man wouldn't listen at all. It was done, Yining called out. Xian, it's getting late. You can rest first, after listening to what I have to say. Xian walked dazedly towards the bed. At the same time, she took off her coat and got into bed. Looking at her closed eyes and slightly trembling lips, Yining quickly realized she had misunderstood something. But he had no intention of taking advantage of the situation, so he took the pillow himself. At the same time, he told her to go to bed early. And turning away, seeing him truly leave, Huan Yuan's heart was again stirred with great waves. I originally thought that most of the so-called gentlemen in this world are hypocrites, with human faces but beastly hearts. But this person was truly different from those hypocrites. When she was at her lowest, he took her in and didn't do anything disgusting to her. Such a person is worth your protection at any cost. It turned out that Xian's presence here was due to the designation of a certain high-ranking official within the Secret Service. To protect Yining and be on call when needed, he had to sacrifice his own life to save him. The maid takes care of Yining's daily life. Yining thought he was a martial arts master. She is just a pitiful person with a tragic fate. Seeing Xian bring a hot towel early in the morning, Yining said somewhat helplessly that he wasn't used to being served. But when he saw her radiant face and smile, he obediently took the towel and put it away. After that, Yining finished changing clothes. He arrived at the procuratorate again, as he was about to enter. Then he suddenly spotted a familiar figure at the door. It was the younger brother he had just taken in from the brothel that day. Then, Yining enthusiastically greeted him. Hearing him call her Zhuangyu and Lang, Tai Xianggao quickly waved her hand. Please don't tease me, Master Yi. Compared to Master Yi, I am truly insignificant. After some flattery, Yining asked him if he was having any difficulties. If not, why did he come to the procuratorate? Tai Xianggao scratched his head and said he was appointed by the emperor to take up the position of Tong Pan. Yining was a little surprised and asked him if he had offended the emperor. Otherwise, why would he be assigned here? Indeed, after hearing him, Tai Xianggao ran straight to the corner. So far, he had only met the emperor twice. How could I possibly offend you? To be honest with you, Yi Huan, at this moment, I only want to resign and return to my hometown to become a teacher. Seeing him in such distress, Yining stepped forward, patted his shoulder, and cursed that blind tyrant. Hearing him say that, Tai Hongqiao felt like he had found a kindred spirit, only regretting that their grand ambitions were like clouds. There's no way to serve the country. Yining comforted him not to be like that. Even in this situation, great things can still be achieved. The ancients said, a strong wind breaks the waves, there will be a time. Ji Guai Yun Fan Ji Shanghai, hearing Yining casually recite a verse. Tai Xianggao silently memorized this poem and intended to use it as the epitaph on his tomb. He flattered Yining for a while, and said she would obey him implicitly. Hearing him say that, Yining immediately instructed him. There's a big task I need your help with right now. Just inform the people that the procuratorate will reopen tomorrow. If you have any grievances, you can come to the procuratorate to find me. At a tavern, a man angrily threw his bowl onto the table. That imperial censor is really stubborn. For several days in a row, the man in black eagerly asked the person across from him. Could it be? The fighting spirit of old Neo was reignited. The man called Lao Neo said, I've only heard that this Master Yi has a very good reputation. But this only made the man in black laugh louder. Old Neo, it's not your first day in officialdom. Corrupt officials, those with a glamorous exterior but rotten inside, their reputation is worthless. Even if he can do real work, in the procuratorate, in the end, he will be just like us, useless. Wasting time, the man who had been silent all this time listened. He raised a large wine jar and drank it all in one gulp. This world is beyond saving. We, the abandoned, the rejects. It's fine to wait for death in the prosecutor's office. Don't even mention Yi, Even if he is the emperor, don't expect me to do my best for him. The next day came quickly, but when Yining was ready to start working, then Huin held her foot from behind. Seeing her worried look, Yining turned around and comforted her, telling her to wait for him obediently at home. However, this time, Xian did not listen to him as usual, and jumped into his arms. Seeing her like that, he agreed to go with her. When he arrived at the procuratorate, then he heard a shout from outside. It turned out that Tai Hung Chao had arrived earlier and was scolding the lazy people in front of him. Seeing this, Yining signaled for silence, suggesting they get closer to observe. Seeing Tai Hung Chao enter the courtyard, she shouted loudly, "How dare you all, in the Grand Secretariat of the Great Show, roast meat and drink wine here?" The others heard Tai Xiangao scolding but remained indifferent. He also cordially invited Tai Hung Chao to join the barbecue party. Facing their indifferent faces, Xiangao pretended to faint. The procuratorate had lost all hope. At that moment, an elder appeared beside Yining, paying a visit. Seeing that, he gestured for the old man to come in. The old man didn't say much. "Be careful when you speak to those in the mansion. I heard that there is a Qingtian official here who can stand up for the people." But those who were just being lazy immediately showed angry expressions. "Old man, what did you just say?" The procuratorate takes fairness and integrity as its guiding principle. They are all cowards, picking on the weak. It turns out that to rectify the work style of the procuratorate, Yining declared that she would resolve the injustice for all the people. But when the vulnerable people came to report, they were again threatened by the guards corrupted by greed. "Get out." Hearing this, the old man was extremely frightened, but still gathered his courage and said that he was looking for an honest official who could stand up for the people. These words angered the other man, and he shouted at the old man asking where he had heard such nonsense. Here, basically no honest official can defend the people. Tai Xiangao stepped past him, approached the old man, inquired about his grievance, and promised to seek justice for him. The old man, hearing that someone had finally stood up for him, cried as he poured out his grievances. He turned out to be a woodcutter who had worked very hard to gather a cartload of charcoal to sell in the capital. He had just entered the city when his charcoal was stolen, and his wife was waiting for the money to cure her illness. But no matter where he went to report it, no one paid any attention. Hearing these words, Tai Xiangao showed indignation and hastily asked the reason. The old man, upon hearing this, sorrowfully said that the thief who stole his coal was the steward of Wu Yuho. Then he knelt down and begged Tai Xiangao for help. At this very moment, the man who had been silent all along suddenly pushed Tai Hung Chao aside. Pointing the dagger at the old man, "I counted to 3, if you don't leave, then your head will be separated from your neck." As the situation worsened, Yining shouted, scolding him, "If you dare to touch him, just try." Seeing Yining, the man sneered, "Isn't this the newly arrived imperial censor?" He stepped in front of him and started to threaten him. However, Yining had no intention of complying with him. She immediately slapped him. The man who had just been slapped by him was about to teach him a lesson. Immediately after, Yining slapped him hard across the face. But he had no intention of stopping, continuing to hit him. This official hates that he cannot beat you to death. The man, his face swollen, finally exploded, drawing his saber and striking towards Yining. He did not dodge, but stared straight at him. He remained silent. The man immediately issued a threat. "Believe it or not, I'm going to kill you now." Yining gave a cold laugh, not retreating but advancing. He also pointed at his throat. "Just cut it here," the man said, his voice laced with suspicion. "What's with this Yining? Is he really not afraid of death?" But to find himself a way out, the man pointed at my nose and yelled, "If you are not my superior, today, I will definitely kill you." Upon hearing this, Yining threw his official robe away, hand on his chest. "I am no longer an official. Come and kill me." Seeing that he still didn't move, Yining stepped forward and taunted him. "Useless thing, you only have this little bit of ability. Why don't you dare to strike?" Realizing he was stubborn, he pointed the awl at the old man. "You and I are colleagues, after all. Why does your excellency side with a commoner, humiliating me like this?" Hearing him say that, Yining immediately grabbed his collar. The prosecutor dared to call the common people low people. Then they dragged him into the court. "If you already have prejudice in your heart, how can you judge him fairly? How can justice be done? Today I give you 16 words. Ear wind, ear road, bright knowledge, bright high and low. To be just, to destroy the tyrant, the way is difficult." After Yining uttered these 16 words of true power, a powerful force of theft surged into the man's chest. At this moment, the man was also a little bewildered. Could this be the word of God? But he still remained silent. Even though he is different from those corrupt officials. What's the point then? Someone like Yining, how could he care about a cart of coal? Offending Marquis Oivu. Even we, in their eyes, are just maids. We can't change anything, he said. Yining picked up the government's order badge. Now we will go to the residence of Marquis Oivu to arrest someone. Are you willing to go with me? Seeing Yining's serious expression, everyone was astonished. He actually dared to provoke Wei Wuho. Tai Xianggao also hurriedly said beside him, Brother Yi, have you ever heard of the saying, it's better to offend the emperor? Don't confront Wu Wuho yet. Once, a high-ranking official of the first rank had a slight conflict with Wei Wuho. The result that night was being besieged to death. Even the current emperor dared not pursue. Yining just indifferently replied to him. So what? The black-haired man said nervously to him. There's only a dead end. Yining naturally wouldn't tell them. This is what he aimed for, Yining declared confidently. Petitioning for the people is also the responsibility of our procuracy. Today, I want to let the world know that there is still a place in this world where reason prevails. If I were even a little late today, you would have completely ruined your life. Remember my words, the strong swing their blades at the strong, the weak swing their blades at the weak. Even the emperor had to be 3 parts respectful of Marquis Wu Yu. In our eyes, he is just a newbie easily manipulated by me. It turned out, he wanted to give justice to the weak. Yining left behind an immortal saying. Then, he walked back to the Duke of Wu's manor alone. Wei Wentong clenched his fists upon hearing my rebuke, crying and wailing about his uselessness. Then, he took his large sword and chased after her all the way to the supervisory court. Master Yi, I, Wei Wentong, am willing to follow in your footsteps. Immediately afterward, a gruff voice rang out. Including this old Neo, the remaining man, Wu Sansi, shouted in surprise at the two's determination. Are you two crazy? That's Wei Wuho. He's definitely going to die. Seeing no one answer him, the man sighed in frustration. At the same time, he carried the black box on his back, stepped forward. Old friend, then let's meet the infamous Wei Wuho. After hearing the names of the 3 of them, Tai Xianggao pondered a bit. He always felt their names sounded familiar. On their way to the residence of Duke Wu Yuho, the people around them looked at them with astonishment. What happened after all, that the Procuratorate has deployed all its forces like this? The name of the Procuratorate has not been heard for a long time. Soon after, they arrived outside the Wuho mansion. Then, Yining told Xian to stand a little further away. Xian immediately understood Yining's intention. You want to die, big brother? He secretly swore in his heart. Yi, my lord, I will not let you die for this loyalty, even if it means using my life to exchange for yours. Inside the imperial study, the emperor was reviewing memorials and also heard about this, and hurriedly took out the magic tool to watch the scene live. Then, Yining led everyone to the outside of the main gate. What surprised him was that even the door frame was made of gold. Tai Xianggao walked forward and knocked on the door. Immediately after, a steward with a grumpy face poked his head out. Who are you? Before Tai Xianggao could introduce himself, Yining pulled him back. You're here to wish Happy New Year? Why are you being polite to those people? Then, Yining kicked away the butler who was blocking the way. Get lost. We are from the Procuratorate. Get out of here. This scene also made the onlookers gasp in fear for Yining. Who is this reckless brat? He was utterly humiliated. The butler uttered a cruel word and turned back to the manor to call for someone. Not long after, every servant, armed with bows and crossbows, surrounded us. Regarding this matter, Yining just smiled faintly. Wei Wentong and Lao Niu were immediately ecstatic. Master Yi was so cool, he even looked down on the living dead. Wu Sansi gave even higher praise. This guy really wants to die. At this moment, the administrator of the Duke of Wu's mansion, Xiao Lingdao, told everyone to wait and asked who Yining was. He gave a cold laugh and asked him, Are you the steward of the Marquis Wu Wu? He received his definite answer. Yining smiled and said to him, I am the censor of the Procuratorate. I am here today because of you. You are in big trouble. Come with us. Hearing Yining say that, the Grand Steward also panicked a little. But she quickly reacted and shook off Yining's hand. It was just a government office that had been abolished long ago. Yining loudly scolded him. You said the Procuratorate was abolished. The great ancestor clearly stipulated that as long as the great show exists for a day, the Procuratorate will exist for a day. Future generations are not allowed to abolish the Procuratorate. The Procuratorate has never been abolished. Yining's words once again sparked agreement. But the general manager didn't care, still mocking the Procuratorate as a shitty place. If you kneel down and call me Grandpa, I will spare your life. Yining smiled and asked him, Do you want to resist law enforcement? However, the general manager did not intend to continue playing chess with Yining. At the same time, he ordered the others to turn him into a hornet's nest. But right when the leader and his men rushed forward, only to be blocked by Tai Hung Chao from behind. At the same time, he revealed Yining's true identity. He is Yining, the one who wrote the poem Jinghua. When he heard of your reputation, the onlookers rushed into the fight. How dare you attack Master Yi? If you want to touch Master Yi, you have to step over my dead body first. However, the servants of the Wuhou mansion did not stop there. They shot arrows into the crowd. The crowd retreated because of the Wuhou residents' aggression. Right at this moment, a cold voice rang out. Take another step. Show no mercy. Yining cursed Wuhou, that powerful idiot, under her breath. However, he laughed and agreed with what he said. When the people saw Wu Yuhou slowly approaching, everyone felt discouraged. Seeing this, Yining walked through the crowd to the front. I, the official, accept your kindness. I am here today to enforce the law. This is official business. Everyone please go home. Study hard, the future is yours. Hearing him say so, everyone still refused to leave. Everyone's eyes were filled with tears. We couldn't bear to watch the master die. Yining smiled and said to them, some people are dead but still alive. Some people are living but already dead. And what Yining did not expect was that his words resonated with the great Tao. Wei Wuntong, after hearing me, suddenly became enlightened and softly muttered, I understand. Meanwhile, in the palace, the emperor, who was watching the live broadcast, stared intently at Yining's figure. But Yining, I need you alive. Wei Wuhou was also a little surprised when Yining dared to take responsibility. One person caused the trouble, one person bears it. Master Yi is indeed an outstanding figure. Looking at Wuhou's gentle gaze, a bad feeling suddenly arose in Yining's heart. Are you not going to kill me, Lord Wu? Deep asked with a smile. I truly have no intention of killing you, Lord Deep. The people behind were buzzing with excitement. Good! But Yining wore a pained expression as she once again sought death by pointing at Wu Hou and cursing him in the most elegant language as an arrogant fool. However, Wu Hou did not seem angry. On the contrary, he laughed loudly, showing no intention of justifying himself, but generously admitted, You are right, Yi Dairen, but I don't want to kill you. Would you like to know why? Yining shook his head, gesturing for him to speak quickly. After he speaks, he will know how to correct himself. Then, Wu Hou told a story. Previously, he was just an ordinary civilian. But one day, his wife gave birth to a lovely daughter for him. When she was 5, she was accepted as a disciple by the Xianmen because of her extraordinary talent. And that very night, he received 13 priceless treasures, including a luminous pearl taken from the Donghai Longlong. This sudden wealth did not sway him, and he returned all the treasures. However, soon after, he received more treasures than he had before. It was from that day on that he realized the principle. That is to just cling to Xianmen. Then he would become the one who stands above all, even if he himself doesn't want to. Others will also use your name to bring more. Hearing him say that, Yining immediately scolded him, saying that he was talking nonsense, like a fly landing on dog shit. You are inherently greedy. Then don't blame me for this. Hearing this, Wei Wuhou just pondered for a while, and then continued to praise Yining as a true hero. He also said that you were the only one who made him admire. Then she reminded him to be careful in the future, as Ye's name was already on Wu Huamen's kill list. Those who wanted to kill him wouldn't need her. He pointed at the steward who was hiding behind him and asked, What have you done that is so unconscionable that you have forced Master Yi to come and arrest you? The housekeeper said with a puzzled look that he didn't know either. Anyway, he had done too many bad things. He couldn't remember at all. Tai Xianggao led the old man up at this time. Don't you recognize him? Yining refused the emperor's protection. He was still interested in asking about the power of Wei Wuhou. Do you dare to kill me? The steward saw the old man and was stunned in an instant, doubtfully asking who this is. Tai Xianggao yelled. You dare to lie now! The butler immediately knelt down in front of Wei Wuhou. Lian Tan begged for forgiveness. The old man suddenly pointed at the steward and shouted, That day, you stole a cart of coal from me! Hearing the reason, a flash of killing intent appeared in the steward's heart. But on her face, she still pretended to be pitiful. Could it be just because of this little thing? But to cause trouble in our own Duke of Wu's mansion? Even the emperor watching live was bewildered, never expecting that his own loyal minister would. It was just because another small wagon of hay arrived. The people behind also expressed surprise. Feel for this reason. This Wu Wuhou also felt humiliated and demanded that Yining explain. Yining coldly shouted at those present. In your eyes, is it just a common coal cart? After that, he went to the old man's side. Punishing Jing burned the coal of Southern Mountain. His face was full of smoke and fire ash. Her hair temples are silver white. Her 10 fingers are grimy. What do you do with the money from selling coal? Buy clothes to wear, buy food to eat. Pity the clothes worn, patched all over. Worried, she lamented her low status and blamed the cold weather. Last night, snow fell outside the city walls. Early this morning, the axle cried out, wheels grinding on the ice. The ox was tired, the people were hungry. The sun rose high. Outside the south gate, resting in the mud, after hearing me recite poetry, the surrounding people all bowed their heads, reflecting on what they had just said. But Marquis Vu showed contempt. Lowly insects live miserably. So what does it have to do with me, this Marquis Vu? However, Yi Ning had no intention of answering him, and continued reading. Suddenly, 2 riders on white horses appeared. Prefect Ho, holding the official document, ordered the cart to head north. The district magistrate would not spare a cartload of coal, or even a few thousand caddies. Reading up to this point, Yi Ning stopped, and glared angrily at the butler kneeling on the ground. This poem has another half-line. A red silk scarf just falls down. Just offered carbon paper to Yama, yet this damn dog won't even give me half a piece of red silk. However, the housekeeper kneeling on the ground suddenly found himself unable to stand up. He looked at Yi Ning with a terrified expression. This person's aura is even more terrifying than that of a cultivator. Those behind him also praised Yi Ning's knowledge, just a few lines of poetry. He understood the suffering of the poor. At that moment, Wu Ho angrily pointed at him and cursed. You are so cruel! Just because of a lowly commoner, my eternal reputation is ruined. Yi Ning turned around, looked at the arrogant speaker, and coldly asked him. Commoner! Without these people you call commoners, you high and mighty nobles are nothing but rootless duckweed. Water can carry the boat, but it can also overturn it. Those who despise the people will eventually pay the price. Wu Ho directly interrupted Yi Ning. Today I was going to spare your life. But you don't know that, so let me take your life for Wu Huawen. Then, at the order of Wu Ho, countless sword strikes shot towards Yi Ning. But as the swords were about to reach him, they were stopped by an unknown force. Finding himself alive, Yi Ning felt a bit disappointed. He already knew this righteous and heroic spirit was a disaster. But this bastard definitely has some hidden tricks up his sleeve. Thinking this over, Yi Ning was once again spirited. The renowned Wu Yu Ho was only this powerful. Indeed, trash is still trash. Just as Marquis Vu was about to call for someone, Eunuch Gi ran up with the imperial edict. His Majesty has decreed, this matter ends here. All of Marquis Wu's losses will be borne by the palace. Deep within the palace, Ji Mingwei also breathed a sigh of relief. Finally on time, Vu Hao flicked his sleeve, ignoring the imperial edict. This Marquis disagrees. At the same time, he steps forward, pointing at Yi Ning's nose and cursing. This person pretends to investigate the case, but in reality, he intentionally humiliates me. This Marquis Vu Ho will not kill this bandit today. I swear I won't let it go. Hearing him finish, Yi Ning didn't back down either. He didn't agree either. Yi Ning clearly has the current emperor's backing. But he chose to ignore the imperial edict and directly confront Wu Yu Ho. Seeing him so frantic, the eunuch quickly reminded him. Master Yi, His Majesty has issued an order to end this matter. Why are you still so stubborn? Yi Ning replied, before escorting the criminal back to the procuratorate. It's not too late then. He then looked at Tai Hung Chao and asked. What was the first rule that Tai Tu established for the Dai Chu? Tai Hung Gao heard this and shouted loudly. The procuratorate has the right to enforce the law, and no one can resist. When the procuratorate enforces the law, no one shall obstruct it. Then Yi Ning looked at the eunuch. Did you hear? Unless the emperor issues an imperial decree, completely denying all the rules established by the Taizu emperor, then he would go with you. Afterwards he stood alone in front. You might think I am making a mountain out of a molehill. But does anyone remember the original purpose when Emperor Taitu established the Vien Kim Sat? The way to govern a country lies in fairness and justice. One should not use social status or the severity of crimes as criteria for judgment. The law is enforced without distinction between rich and poor. Laws are enforced, the country prospers. Delayed decrees lead to national chaos. Yi Ning's words also moved the people who were hesitating there. Everyone raised their hands and shouted, calling Yi Ning's name. He also felt the power from around him. Yi Ning continued her speech. Perhaps the light of one person is somewhat faint, but the light of 10,000 people converging is enough to illuminate the entire Great Chu. In the deepest part of the palace, the young empress felt every word Yi Ning spoke struck her heart. He truly wanted to use his life to awaken the Great Chu. He immediately roared, mobilizing all manpower in the capital, at all costs to rescue Yi Ning. After issuing the imperial decree, the emperor breathed a sigh of relief, and stormed out of the room. Foolish brat, does he think he's the only light? I will beat him until he comes to his senses. In the Lu manor, Lu San Yuan was making a fuss about going to rescue Deepening, but he was restrained by Lu Jin's men. But he didn't give up because of that. On the contrary, he was even more determined to refute. If we just stay at home and do nothing, We will regret it for the rest of our lives. Lu Jin sighed softly. He just signaled for the servant to release the child. Watching Liu Sanyuan's retreating back, a cunning glint flashed in Liu Jin's eyes. Your father here also really wants to save him. But for the great Zhou, I have more important things to do. On the other side, Wu Yuho looked at the crowd gathered and sneered. Black ants, what can a crowd do? Behind us is the Chuanyu Pavilion. No one in this world dares to touch me. Alright, let me show you something today. Then he clapped his hands coldly saying, Kill him for me. His voice just trailed off. 4 strong men wearing helmets. Surrounding Yi Ning, the crowd behind shouted, Master Yi, run! You can't hold on. Right after that, the Iron Man in front of him charged forward. Looking at the iron fist right in front of him, Yi Ning slightly curled his lips. This time, let's see who can protect you. Just as he thought he could finally fulfill his wish, Neo Jinsi swung his fist to block the attack. The Procuratorate is currently carrying out its duties. Who dares to stop me? Another punch landed on that iron-faced man. Once upon a time Lao Neo was also a commander of thousands of troops, once leading 5,000 iron cavalry to flatten the Yao Man star palm. At that time, I thought that victory was the beginning of my life. It turned out to be the end of his life. Thinking of this, Neo Jinsi shouted. The Neo Jinsi of the past is dead. From today onwards, the only survivor was Neo Tong Fan of the Procuratorate. Seeing the power he displayed, Yi Ning was extremely astonished. This dark fatty didn't know martial virtue, he actually dared to stab him in the back. Then, Yi Ning placed all her hopes on the 3 big guys behind her. Seeing their angry looks, he suddenly had an idea. The opportunity has arrived. A familiar voice sounded from nearby. The Procuratorate doesn't only have Neo Tong Ban, but also me, Wei Wentong. He was a drunkard who spent his days drinking and carousing, but only used. One move took care of 3 giants who were 8 feet tall. It turned out he wasn't useless at all. At the age of 15, he used his outstanding talent to sweep away all the dancers of the same age. At the age of 18, he joined the imperial court, becoming a Wuhan. In just 4 years, he had solved countless unsolved cases and major cases. Become the best divine physician in the world, famous everywhere. Then, before Yi Ning's astonished eyes, he shielded him from behind. Then, he drew his sword and charged at the 3 giants. Then, with a single drawing slash, he cut them in half. Seeing his treasured amulet being dealt with so easily, Marquis Oivu gritted his teeth and mentioned Yi Ning's name. You are despicable and shameless, pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. My illegal treasure, Yi Ning smiled, watching him. I advise you not to underestimate me. If you have anything else powerful, bring it out quickly, otherwise, I'm afraid you won't have another chance. Upon hearing this, Wu Wuho drew out a small knife from his chest, stabbed his palm. Next, a thick black aura emerged behind Wu Yuho, along with the roar of a ferocious beast. A tens of meters tall beast appeared before Yi Ning. Seeing the beast's ferocity, he was also a little scared. Such a ferocious dog could certainly kill him without any problem. Neo Jinsi heard nothing. His face panicked as he looked at Yi Ning. Mighty Marquis you dare to summon a demonic beast again? Seeing that, Wu Ho's expression turned fierce. This time, let's see how you can still save them. Then, the ferocious beast opened its huge mouth and bit towards Yi Ning. Xian was a bit nervous. She gathered 2 spiritual chi streams in her hands, and finally had to take action. At this moment, Yu Sansu suddenly appeared in front of Yi Ning and threw the black briefcase in his hand to the ground. Then, the trunk clicked open automatically. A golden sword automatically flew out. Wu Sansi stroked his chin and chuckled. Old friend. Go out and get some fresh air. Look, the sword automatically flew out. Yi Ning pretended to be serious. You guys are so good. Everyone is a hidden expert. Even Xian behind her looked surprised. No way, it's Fei Jian. Who is this old man, anyway? The ferocious dog from earlier also immediately fell silent, then turned and ran in the opposite direction. Seeing this, Wu Sansi, smiling faintly. The next moment, a golden light descended from the sky. A rumbling sound was heard. The dog's shadow immediately disappeared without a trace. Wu Wuho remained frozen in place. Then Yu Sansi's mouth curled up. How dare they lay their hands on the Procuratorate? At that moment, the people behind them all gasped. The Procuratorate was so powerful. With these assistants, Yi Derin would surely be able to roam freely in the future. Outside the Duke of Wu's mansion, on the carriage, Lu Zhu said, Miss, do you think Master Dian knows about this? Xiao Tianshan lifted the curtain of the carriage. He was obviously unaware. Perhaps these people are heaven's favor for him. Afterward, the 3 of them knelt before Yi Ning. But he gritted his teeth in anger. The 3 of you, give me an explanation. Yi Ning clearly wanted to die. But he was always tragically stabbed. only because after his death, he would become the Heavenly Emperor. He holds the power in one hand, yet there are always those who disrupt his plans. She even declared that as long as they lived for a day, no one could harm him. Without even touching a single hair, at this very moment, Tai Xianggao ran excitedly towards Yining. These three masters are not ordinary people. Wei Wenzhong is the best god in Jiangnan. Niu Jinsi was a renowned general in the border army. As for Wu Sanxi, it's not very clear. Hearing Wu Sanxi's introduction, I immediately grabbed his collar. It seemed like there was a brief introduction just now. Tai Xianggao looked embarrassed. Those things are not important, just know that he is a formidable person. Then he puffed up his chest with pride and said loudly, "Martial arts genius, frontier army general, I never thought our procuratorate would hide such talent." But in Yining's heart, there was immense sorrow. The alliance, once called the Waste Alliance, had in the blink of an eye become the Vengeance Alliance. Then Yining choked up as she spoke to them. "No. Why did you save me?" Hearing that, Wei Wenhong clasped his hands and bowed to him. "Master Yi, there's no need to be touched. You deserve this from us. Before, after being exiled to the procuratorate, I felt my official career was hopeless. The country was beyond salvation, so I started to drink to drown my sorrows. At that time, I was like a walking corpse. Until you came, you told me, the weak swing their swords at the weak, the strong swing their swords at the strong. You have awakened me, helped me find my reason for existence." Then, he thudded to his knees. "Master Yi, to me, you are the one who redeems my gratitude." At this moment, Niu Jingxi beside him also knelt down. "Me too, one sentence from you has awakened me." Hearing their words, Yining wanted to cry but had no tears. It turned out that he had stabbed himself in the back. Seeing their harmonious submission, Tai Xianggao asked Wu Sanxi, "Do you want to say something?" Wu Sanxi stroked his beard and said, "I'm just an unknown small official, I don't have much to say. I only took action because I didn't want anything to happen to you, sir. Just wanting to protect the Lord completely." Then, Wei Wentian and the other person expressed their loyalty to me, Yi Darin. "From today onwards, we will follow you wholeheartedly." To restore the glory of the procuratorate, Yining waved his hand and said it was unnecessary. He didn't need anyone to follow him. Tai Xianggao stepped forward and explained to them, "I understand Lord Ye's intentions. He is a lone wolf, always trying to awaken others with his own strength." Several people understood immediately after hearing that. "We understand Master Ye's determination. We will become the sharpest blade of the adults. For the sake of our great cause, we will eliminate everything." Seeing the children's awakening, Tai Hung Chao shouted excitedly, "See?" Deep Wen was so happy he was speechless. Hearing this, Yining couldn't help but say, "Tai Xianggao, you should speak less." Then, he pointed at Wei Wuho. "The matter is not settled yet." Marquis Yuwu angrily shouted, "Look what you have done to my Marquis Yuwu's residence." Facing his impotent rage, Yining pointed a scornful finger at him. "Don't just talk. If you want to kill me, come here." Protector Oi Vu was about to advance and fight Yining. Were stopped by two fierce men. Looking at their fierce eyes, Wu Yuho couldn't help but take a step back. 30 years in Hedong, 30 years in Hishi. Don't look down on us because we are poor. Just wait and see. Wei Wentong and the other man scoffed and spat. That bastard, being protected by them, made Yining feel like he had swallowed chicken shit. "We are truly grateful to you." Their actions quickly became a hot topic throughout the city. Our procuratorate has returned. Moreover, they have also pacified the Oi Wuho mansion. Our great Chu finally has a place to defend the common people. Inside the procuratorate, Wei Wentong looked at the man bound before him, and said to Yining, "My lord, how should we deal with this brat?" Hearing him ask, Yining calmly replied. He said, "Deal with him by law." And then, Wei Wentian, cracking his knuckles, stepped towards the man. "How many years has it been since we interrogated a prisoner? You must try to endure a little longer. Wait until Wei Wentong leaves." Wu Sanxi came to Yining's side and reminded her, this time she was lucky. "You must be careful." But Yining didn't care. Even if he relied on the mountain gate, I wouldn't be afraid. At the same time, I thought, hurry up and find someone to kill me. Wu Sanxi stroked his beard and replied, "I'm not talking about the immortal sections. I've heard that Marquis Yuwu has built a vast network of connections over the years. Among them, there is a close relationship with Yan Yulo." Yining was slightly stunned. Yan Yulu. It is rumored that there is an organization in the martial arts world. They specialized in arson, murder, and robbery, leaving no evil deed undone. No one had ever known the true identity of their leader. But if you pay enough, they even dare to assassinate immortals. Then, Wu Sanxi took out a protective talisman from her bosom. "Master Yi, to guard against the assassins sent by Yan Yulu, you must keep this talisman with you." Yining flatly refused. I have righteous aura protecting my body. I appreciate your kindness. But he still didn't give up. Instead, he pushed the amulet towards Yi Ning. It's easy to dodge a spear in the open, but hard to guard against an arrow shot in the dark. Seeing that Yi Ning accepted it, he stroked his beard in satisfaction and turned to leave. There are countless ways to harm people in the world. Though you have no intention of harming others, you can't not be wary of people. Seeing him about to leave, Yi Ning hurriedly called him back and asked the question that was bothering her. Who are you, after all? Wu Sansu's face held a mysterious expression. Just a nameless pawn, thought Yi Ning, looking at the sky with a hint of helplessness as he watched him leave. It seemed that he still knew so little about the world. Back in his room, he took out his ancient scroll and learned that cultivators in this world could easily live for thousands of years. Only after Chu Taizu founded the Great Chu did they mysteriously disappear. It is still unclear whether he is alive or dead, and after his disappearance, 7 kings succeeded him, the longest-lived of whom lived only 150 years. While watching the ancient play, Yi Ning astutely sensed a whiff of conspiracy. The successive deaths of emperors have affected the fate of the great Zhou dynasty, and began to decline rapidly. Right at this moment, the pillar will stand up. He firmly believes that a strong person like Taizu will certainly not disappear easily. Only by finding the Taizu can the destiny of the great Zhou be revived. For the stability of the great Zhou, he embarked on a journey alone to find the Taizu, and this journey, he never came back. Coming here, Yi Ning finally understood everything. The position of chief prosecutor has always been vacant. It turns out this procuratorate has so many talented people. In the imperial study, the emperor sighed as he held each file. Why weren't these talents discovered sooner? Emperor Xiao Tian blamed himself. It's all my fault. If I had investigated the procuratorate earlier, these people won't be lonely for too long. The emperor denied Xiao Tianshan's words. This is not your fault. I am the king of a country, yet so many talented people are exiled. I did not know anything. Xiao Tiantian thought for a moment. Although it appeared to be that way, looking at it from another perspective, His Majesty sending Yi Ning to the Inspection Institute became another good move. The Emperor, after listening, her complexion is a little better. Hopefully that's the case, this was Sansi, he must be the true person using the flying sword, right? Why is there so little information about him? Xiao Tiantian was also extremely suspicious. It was truly strange. This person was like he fell from the sky. No family, no past, besides his name. Then nothing can be found. In this world, the secret code that the Duke cannot touch is only in 2 places. One is Xianen. Second, it was the Middle Palace. After hearing this, the Emperor became tense and insisted on thoroughly investigating his identity. If I don't keep Yi Ning by my side, it's too dangerous. On the other side, 2 beams of golden light suddenly erupted in the procuratorate. Then Tai Xianggao entered with a joyful expression. Brother Yi, good news, Lord Wei and Lord Neo have made a breakthrough. Only Wei Wentian had been waiting outside the courtyard for a long time. Thank you for your encouragement, sir. I've thought a lot about it. I have crossed the threshold of first-grade martial artist and officially advanced to the Grandmaster level. Hearing his words about advancement, Yi Ning instinctively stepped back. He would have to stay away from this guy in the future. To avoid being stabbed in the back, he took a step back, but bumped into Niu Jinsi, who was overjoyed. Next, he laughed heartily. My lord, I have also broken through. Our Niu family has always relied on fighting to unlock the power of our bloodline. But by our generation, the purity of our bloodline has fallen to less than 1/10 of what it was before. Yi Ning comforted him. It's okay, you tried your best. She thought to herself. This guy's intimidation doesn't seem so powerful after all. Then, Lao Niu grabbed my shoulder and excitedly said. Exactly, your words have awakened my will to win. This has also awakened the truly pure bloodline that lies within me. Hearing this, Yi Ning quickly stepped aside. I congratulate you all. He then ran into the study. He slammed the door shut. What's going on here? Why is there an upgrade? Right now, outside the door came the voice of Tai Xianggao. Since everyone has gotten stronger, yes, safety is also guaranteed. Wei Wentong was the first to agree. That insidious and cunning Marquis Yu will definitely return to harm Brother Yi. From today onwards, I will risk my life to protect the master. Lao Niu and Wu Sansi were also excited. If he dared to come, then let's see. He stayed in the shadows for 10 years playing supporting roles, unnoticed by the world. Then, in one step, he reached the clouds, and his fame resonated throughout the land. So that the assassin could perform better, Yi Ning brazenly walked through the market. He looked back every 3 steps to see if there was anyone suspicious around. This made Huin think he was wary of being followed, and silently vowed to protect him. But what Yi Ning was on guard against was not an assassin, but the 3 men who had sworn to protect him. Those hidden talents. Therefore, Yining arrived at Zuixianlu, the easiest place to take action at this moment, and silently worried about those assassins. Hurry up with the medicine, I'm here. But when Yining walked in, the scene became strangely silent. Then, amidst the crowd, a cheer erupted. Master Yi has arrived! Then, the enthusiastic group surrounded me, making all sorts of unreasonable demands. Some people wanted a hug. Some people even wanted to kiss him. Yining was a little overwhelmed by their enthusiasm. Don't rush, everyone. Please give way to those who need it more. However, these words backfired. Everyone surrounded Yining, and he became the one who needed protection. Their enthusiasm made him tired. It was so crowded like this. Even assassins can't get close. It seems I still have to rely on myself. And brother Oi Vu Ho. At this moment, a figure suddenly rushed out from the crowd. Lord Yi. May I ask if you intend to fight to the death with Oi Vu Hao? Yining snatched his book. At the same time, put one foot on the table. It's not that I want to fight him to the end, but that the Procuratorate wants to fight to the end against the evil forces. Prepare yourself, Oi Vu Hao. This is just the beginning. Hearing that, the crowd erupted in another cheer. The news quickly reached Marquis Wu. Furious, he smashed his favorite blue porcelain vase. Yining, I and you will never get along. Wu Ho roared fiercely. Mr. Shin, an old man asked upon hearing the sound. What instructions does Marquis Oi Vu have? Marquis Oi Vu stared into his eyes and said, I need you to go on a trip. Find that man, tell him I want Yining's head. Despite everything. Tonight we must act. Many men are under the command of Wei Wu Ho. Arrived at a wooden house, this humble one, Shinsan of Wu Ho Prefecture, requests an audience. Hearing this, a roar of anger came from inside the wooden house. Shinsan felt a cold sweat break out. But he still gritted his teeth and went in. In the darkness, the figure sneered. This time kill who? Yining, the imperial censor of the censorate. Hearing this name, that man's face turned fierce. He was a good official loved by the people. To kill him, you'd have to pay extra. After Yining returned to the residence, she started inspecting everywhere within the residence. This also made the housekeeper speechless, asking him what he was looking for. He replied that he had no business, he just wanted to see if those talented people would follow him. Then, he chased old Huang away and told him to ignore any noise. And don't go outside, then I'll tell Huan Yuan again what I told Lao Huang. And handed over something wrapped in white cloth. In her hand, Xian looked at the thing in her hand. A glance was enough to recognize that this was the amulet that Wu Sansi gave me. Then, Yining smiled confidently and looked out the door. You Wu Ho, don't disappoint me. He was clearly the killer in the dark. Yet, she willingly stayed by Yining's side, acting like a spoiled maidservant. That night, Yining knew that assassins would come to visit. He slept soundly. It turned out that it was all Huan Yuan's doing. So he could sleep well, she stayed in our room. Burn and hun incense, the type that can make people fall into a deep sleep. After confirming that Yining couldn't wake up, Xian immediately changed her weak appearance. Wearing a female knight's outfit. This time I will protect you. Then, she tucked the blanket around Yining, and placed her amulet. On Yining, having done everything, she confidently walked out. Your hand should still write the most beautiful verses. This filthy murder. Let me take care of it for you. Soon, she noticed a small noise outside the courtyard. The next moment, a large hand gripped the edge of the wall. Afterward, a figure slowly walked out. Huan's lips curled into a faint smile. Using paper people to probe, she was indeed cautious. As soon as he finished drawing, the paper person appeared before him. But before he could attack, had been hacked to death by Xian. The girl who had just successfully made her move didn't let her guard down. At the same time, she looked towards the dozens of paper people around her and quickly noticed. Their weapons seemed to be poisoned. But there was no fear in her eyes, and she mumbled something about clouds and sword formations. Then, a burst of steam erupted around her body. In a flash, the mist transformed into sharp blades. She revolved around the little girl, then transformed into a sword, resisting the oncoming paper people. Soon, those paper people holding weapons crumbled into pieces. Scattered everywhere, her power was also acknowledged by the man in black. He was also invited to join the Yan Wulu. Hearing this, the young woman immediately assumed an attack stance. Yan Yulo, notorious for being despicable, dared to recruit her? Then, she used a move. He brazenly struck towards the man in black. The surprise attack split the black-clothed man in two, but he was just a paper figure. At that very moment, the man in black transformed into a puff of smoke and slipped into the house. And once again condensed into a human figure. You fool, about to die and still don't know it. Next, a silver light flashed in his hand. He was about to stab Yining, who was fast asleep. The next moment, a deafening sound came from inside the house. Then, a dark figure was thrown out. Huan Yuan looked in that direction. The man looked inside the house with a sinister expression. "You coward! You dare use a cursed sword to attack me? If not for my protective armor." He probably fell here, but Xuan Huyan drew her sword and charged forward. "Despicable person. It is you indeed." But the man didn't intend to linger. The black talisman in his hand burned to ashes, turned into a plume of black smoke and vanished on the spot. Huan Yuan looked at the empty yard. Lost in thought, he was another anonymous master. This assassin's identity is probably not simple. On the other hand, the angry man crushed the object in his hand. "My order, all the assassins of the Tai Bai and under the Tai Bai of the Yen Wu Lu, regardless of everything. Kill Yining." Soon after, figures swarmed Yi Manor. Very quickly, Xian fought with the men in black. This battle lasted until sunrise the next day. At this moment, Xian was covered in wounds. She said wearily, "I have protected you." The news that she alone protected the Yi residents quickly reached Xiao Tianshan's ears. The girl is quite something, even more resilient than her deceased father. "Yen Yulo, this time you have truly provoked someone you shouldn't have." Yining was offered a bounty by the largest assassin organization. But he was not afraid at all, on the contrary. He took off all his clothes and waited for them to come and take his life. But after a night, he became invisible again. Yawning awake, until she saw that everything around her was intact, a deep sense of helplessness welled up from within. "Are all these assassins useless? General Wei Wu, I am now on top of you. You can still hold back." At this moment, outside the room, suddenly there was a terrified scream from old Huang. Yining hurriedly opened the door. He shouted, "What's wrong?" But the sight that met his eyes made him speechless. "Wu Wu Ho, I have wronged you. It's really generous of you to send so many people, but who is this gossip anyway?" After cleaning up, Yining got dressed and prepared to go outside to see what was going on, while telling Xian to stay home. But he quickly realized the small tail that often followed him. He disappeared without a trace. Thinking about this, Yining rushed into the little girl's room, and he saw Huin lying on the bed. A terrible thought flashed through Yining's mind. Thinking that, he quickly ran over to help Xian up. After that, he discovered the amulet that the little girl was holding tightly in her hand. His tears could no longer be held back. "Sorry, it's all my fault." "But you haven't finished your sentence." Then twin snores started. This sight made Yining fall to the ground in shock. Hearing the noise, Lao Huang immediately ran in and asked him what was wrong. Yining replied that he was fine, he just didn't sleep well last night. Huang accidentally fell. Then, he discovered that Xian was sleeping soundly, but what puzzled him was why she was still asleep. Yining told him it was okay, just kids. "It's good that you slept well. Although everyone around me is fine, which is good, you are also fine." This made Yining feel very uncomfortable. Lao Niu went towards him after seeing him. Most of these people died because sword wounds, their fighting stances, is of those cultivators who use swords. Hearing this, Yining turned his head towards Wu Sansi. But he told him that this was nothing to do with him. If he had done it, their bodies wouldn't be intact like this. Hearing him explain, Yining also felt. Without saying anything more, he walked around to inspect the traces left behind after the battle. Because it wasn't done by Wu Sansi. So who is it then? After that, Yining turned her head to look at Wei Wentian and the others, if they want to save him. There's basically no need to hide it like this. Thus, besides these three people, there were other experts hiding nearby to protect him. Thinking of this, Yining waved his hand and told them, "Investigate this thoroughly for me. You must find out who is protecting me. I will definitely repay that person well," and he emphasized the two words, repay. Huan Yuan didn't know when she woke up, and silently answered his question in her heart. "There's no need for repayment. This is my biggest wish, to be able to protect you forever." On the other side, in Wu Marquis's mansion, Wu Marquis, upon hearing that Yining was still alive, flying into a rage, she smashed everything in front of her. At this moment, a subordinate enduring the pressure entered. "Your lordship, His Majesty. Summon Yining and the other prefects to court tomorrow morning." Hearing this, Wei Wuho's eyes lit up with hope, as if he wanted to kill them just as much as I did. The next day, Lao Niu looked around with bright eyes. "This place is so beautiful." Wu Sansi sighed slightly. "Country bumpkin." After that, Yu Sansi saluted Yining and excused himself, saying he didn't like crowded places, and left. Yining immediately agreed. But right now, a familiar voice sounded from behind. "Master Yi, we received news that today's court session was unusual. Please be careful." The emperor summoned Yining personally, but he didn't want to reward him. It's just a home-man banquet set up for him. Hearing the little eunuch's reminder, Tai Xianggao immediately became angry. You said the emperor summoned us, not to reward us, but because the censorate made the entire court, both civil and military officials, apprehensive. To take action against us? Lao Niu couldn't believe it after hearing this. Clearly, it took a lot of effort to make Master Yi see hope. But right now, Yi Ning patted him on the shoulder, signaling him not to get agitated. It's not that easy to suppress us. But in his heart, he felt happy about this, the procuratorate. Now it has become a place valued by the entire court. This is beneficial to Yi Ning's work, great. Next, he smiled and told them to trust him. With him here, the prosecutor's office will not collapse. Everyone seemed astonished and had absolute faith in Yi Ning's promise. With Master Yi here, the procuratorate will not collapse. Their unusual actions also made the little eunuch quite worried. He said the emperor was also on their side. Yi Ning replied to him. Of course I know, or he wouldn't have summoned us here. The emperor and his corrupt officials are certainly in cahoots. And on the other side, the emperor suddenly sneezed. At the same time, there was a touch of anticipation as she looked towards the inside of the palace. Has Yi Qing not arrived yet? I hope Yi Qing won't blame me. I originally intended for you to hide, but now that things have become this chaotic, this is the only way to protect you. However, Yi Ning knew nothing of her thoughts. He walked towards the grand hall with a majestic air. The people behind me also started to cheer me on. Shouting Yi Ning's name, the little eunuch felt a pang of bitterness as he witnessed this scene. Though he didn't want Yi De-rin to directly confront those people. But if Master Yi had chosen to compromise just now, perhaps you will be even sadder. But very quickly, he became resolute again. Although I am just a eunuch, I have no right to fight alongside you, but I wish you a long life of 100 years. Because the world needs people like you. Soon after, Yi Ning appeared. In the grand hall. They also bowed to the emperor on the throne. The ministers in the court all wore expressions of anticipation, and murmurs arose from all sides. They are just a bunch of warriors who only know how to kill. At that moment, the emperor called out, and Yi Ning immediately interrupted him. May I have a few words with my colleagues first? Then, he smiled and looked around at the officials. Haven't you all had dinner today? He asked. Though they didn't understand why he asked that, but still replied. Already eaten, Yi Ning asked back. You've already eaten, so why is your voice so small? Don't you want to suppress our supervision institute? Even when you scold us, you have to whisper. What else can you do? The emperor on the throne was dumbfounded. Yi Ning seemed unexpectedly arrogant. At that moment, an old man with white hair stood up, scolding him for not understanding etiquette. He dared to yell in the royal court. Along with his voice, surrounding him, echoed criticisms. Seeing that the situation was hopeless, Xiang silently apologized to Yi Ning, then also joined their side, and demanded that he be severely punished. Yi Ning burst into laughter. Tai Xianggao didn't understand what he was laughing at. Yi Ning answered him. It's because I find the performance of these clowns dancing quite amusing. Even more spectacular than the monkey show, Yi Ning said. They all laughed together. Master Yi is right. This made the old man so angry that he wanted to torture Yi Ning to death. Seeing this, Yi Ning directly reached out and took his finger. You've been very enthusiastic this whole time. May I ask who you are? The old man pulled his finger out with force. I am the minister of the Ministry of Personnel. Hearing him say that, Yi Ning's face showed a look of sudden understanding. No wonder I said, why is there someone so blind? It turns out to be Minister Lai. Don't be sad, actually I also. It's not aimed at anyone. I mean, today those who came to suppress Yi Ning, we can all call them beasts. Then, he pointed his finger at his nose and cursed. 3 months ago, the corruption case in Yingzhou caused tens of thousands of carriers to rise up. A month earlier, the tyrannical magistrate of Jiangzhou made life miserable for the people. Furthermore, 15 days ago, yes, all of the above, in the end, are all due to the corruption of the Ministry of Personnel. You, as the Minister of Personnel, it would be difficult for him to escape the charges. Corruption, embezzlement of public funds, calling him an animal would be an insult to the word animal. Seeing him so enraged by her teasing that he vomited blood, Yi Ning didn't feel any satisfaction. Even though this world had turned him into a stepping stone for heaven and earth, he still couldn't eliminate these corrupt officials who exploited the people. But at least today, let me use my meager words for this decaying world. For those who still hold hope for the future, to leave a little sound of justice, to bring to this broken world a ray of hope. Yi Ning rolled up his sleeves and confronted the entire court. Under the attack of his sharp tongue, the corrupt officials were defeated one after another. Seeing this, he laughed at himself, holding his head. No one could refute it. At this moment, a voice suddenly echoed in the hall. Master Yi, truly awe-inspiring. Seeing the person arrive, Yi Ning couldn't help but be stunned. This person was wearing the uniform of the Procuratorate, but why had he never met him before? At this time, someone reminded him that he was the censor Zhongqing, Oyanji. Hearing this, Yi Ning couldn't help but click her tongue. It was unexpectedly his superior. Then he stepped forward, sizing him up and concluding with an 80% certainty that he was human. It's not an animal. Oyanji heard this and showed anger. He patted him on the shoulder and said, Nothing. I was just a little surprised. I didn't expect that, Mr. Odyun. You are still alive? Hearing Yi Ning's ridicule, he pushed him away and yelled, Guards, drag him out and beat him. But she waited, and no one answered from the great hall. Realizing that no one was paying attention to him, he felt awkward. And based on his highest position, he ordered the people of the Procuratorate to help him. Hearing these words, Yi Ning stepped forward to question him. You know you're an official of the Procuratorate. Don't you understand what the Procuratorate exists for? We represent the people and uphold justice. Distinguish right from wrong. Who would have thought? He shifted all the blame onto Yi Ning. Our great Chu is clearly at peace. And now you have made everything a mess. Just because of a trivial load of coal, a lot of rumors have spread and the capital is in turmoil. Couldn't he rent out his vacant houses? Or kill a buffalo, sell the meat for money to survive the winter? Isn't it better than nothing? Look at his bragging. Yi Ning couldn't help but reach out to interrupt. Let me tell you a story first. In ancient times, there was a place suffering from drought, and people were starving to death on the streets. So someone reported this to the high-ranking officials in the court. The high official was very surprised and asked, If the people have no food to eat, why not eat pork porridge? Everyone remained silent after hearing that. But Ouyangji pretended not to understand and dared to ask the official where he was wrong. Next, he went to the Minister of Rights, Lai Bu, and continued to ask if there was no food. Can't eat meat? Hearing him say this, Yi Ning finally confirmed something. He might not be evil, but it's just plain stupid. At this moment, the Emperor furiously slammed his throne. Interrupting their conversation, she was in a terrible predicament now. If she cancelled the Procuratorate, it will certainly chill the hearts of loyal officials. But if she didn't do it, she finally couldn't help but speak up. I agree to rectify the Procuratorate. All officials in the Procuratorate will be transferred to other government offices to be appointed to other positions. Just as everyone in the court was secretly rejoicing over this decision, Yi Ning shouted again, disagree. To prevent them from thinking he was hallucinating, he shouted each word. This official does not agree. All the officials in the court looked at each other in disbelief and appealed to the Emperor to eliminate Yi Ning. The Emperor also looked troubled, not knowing how to resolve the crisis for him. Somewhere on the rafters outside the Imperial Palace, Wu Sanxi held a wine gourd. Swallowing mouthful after mouthful, they have been gone for so long and still haven't returned. He had a bad feeling. 60 years ago, the Imperial Palace almost buried me. 60 years later, does the Imperial Palace want to bury Diane again? Immediately, he abruptly stood up, questioned the sky. Why everyone who upholds public interest, protects order must die, while those who sabotage public interest, who are unreasonable, are allowed to live. Immediately afterwards, Wu Sanxi took a step. He dashed into the distance, then landed steadily outside a large hall. Looking at the sign above, Wu Sanxi bowed and said, Procuratorate Inspector Wu Sanxi. Excuse me, what happened in Xinxuan? Yi Ning had the most irresponsible system. She told him that he could only reach the peak in the next life. So, he began to try all sorts of reckless methods, just to be able to start a new life soon. But he didn't get what he wanted, and is becoming even stronger. It turns out, Yi Ning cursed the Emperor in front of all the officials. When he thought that things had finally settled down, Wu Sanxi went directly to the Gong Yitang to beg Wei Xian to come out. But no matter what Wu Sanxi said, inside, there was still no response. Wu Sanxi continued. Now, the world is difficult, order has collapsed. The people are suffering. The Procuratorate, like withered flowers of the past, has become desolate. If it weren't for Yi Ning, the world would have forgotten the Procuratorate's existence. If Master Yi dies, then the Procuratorate will also die with him. Lord Qiling, you shoulder the mission of Lord Jianjing. Could it be that you want to see Lord Jianjing's painstaking efforts just let it go like this? He has waited for half a day already. But there was still no movement inside. To gain the trust of Wen Xian Jing, Wu Sanxi said loudly, I'm willing to bet my entire life's cultivation of swordsmanship. If Master Yi cannot pass the test, I will voluntarily abandon my cultivation. Along with him, as soon as she finished speaking, ripples appeared on the surface of the Wenqi mirror. Then, his Qiling transformed into a golden ray of light. Emerging from the mirror, Kylin soon arrived in the Imperial Palace's sky. Deep Nin, let me see. Can you pass my test? Inside the main hall, the treacherous officials pointed at Yi Ning and hurled insults, threatening him to commit suicide on the spot. Yi Ning looked at them in surprise. Although I was disrespectful to your majesty, I will not commit suicide, because I do not regret what I have done. You can kill me, but my death will be glorious. This you will never understand. Jiling arrived silently. She couldn't help but be startled, because she had the ability to discern whether others were lying or not. Unexpectedly, Yi Ning had crossed the boundary between life and death. Next, his whole body erupted in a burst of golden light. That light enveloped the entire Imperial Palace in a flash. The essence of each person is infinitely amplified by this golden light. The jealousy in Ouyangji's heart was also infinitely magnified. Why could you teach me so righteously? Why could you be so fearless? She had already attracted everyone's attention. Jiling gave Yi Ning a new comment. Someone who makes their enemies hate and envy them but makes their own people trust them completely. Having passed the second trial, in order to kill Yi Ning, Lai Bushangshi used the 6 nations and Xianmen as pressure. He forced the emperor to issue an order to kill his brother. The emperor also did not expect things to develop like this. For a moment, he did not know what to do. But Yi Ning was not afraid. He told them, if the sky is dark, then survive in the darkness. If speaking is dangerous, so keep silent. If you find yourself unable to shine, then curl up in the corner. But don't get used to the darkness, and then make excuses for it. Don't be complacent in your own cowardice. Don't mock those who are braver and more passionate than you. We can be as humble as dust. Don't squirm like a worm. After hearing what he said, all the criticisms and scolding disappeared without a trace. At this very moment, a golden light enveloped me. Then, a voice echoed from the void. Newly appointed supervisory official of the Procuratorate. This voice echoed throughout every corner of the street. It also reached the ears of Wu Sanxi. Immediately afterward, the Imperial Palace began to shake violently. Golden rays of light from all directions flew towards Gongyi Hall. Sink into that bright mirror. The swords clashed with a clear and crisp sound. Beyond the Imperial City, flying towards the Imperial Palace, Wu Sanxi felt the pressure from the hilt of the sword. His heart was in turmoil, and then his eyes widened. Could it be that, even in the Grand Hall, everyone is also taken aback by this sudden change? They started to panic, but Yi Ning always felt something was wrong. I smell betrayal again. Immediately after that, a beam of golden light shot straight towards Yi Ning, the newly appointed chief prosecutor Yi Ning. Yi Ning has a system that only activates after death. Every time he thinks this time he will definitely die, then there are always unexpected things happening. Not only are they not fulfilled, he became even stronger. This time was no exception, and he even accidentally obtained a divine weapon. Feeling the changes in his body as fast as a satellite signal, Yi Ning was stunned. The broken mirror had merged with the heroic aura in his body. Then, his body began to glow. Sure enough, he was stronger. The treacherous official sneered. So what if he's the supervisor? The third-party trespasser deserves death. The next moment, a golden sword appeared in the middle of the great hall. That light directly struck the treacherous officials who were spewing venomous words. But Yi Ning suddenly realized that from the moment this golden sword appeared, his body had started to lose control. He couldn't speak. He could not move either. At that moment, the precious sword fell firmly in front of him. The voice of the sword spirit echoed in his mind at this moment, praising him for having so much righteous aura, enough to qualify him as his successor. At this moment, Yi Ning wanted to cry but couldn't, but her body's instincts. Still receiving the sword spirit's inheritance, this Jianling told him that to be his successor, just having heroic righteousness is not enough. There are still many things to learn. Afterward, he directly took over Yi Ning's body. Fang Zhang's swordsmanship appeared as if Taizu himself had manifested. Immediately, he raised the long sword in his hand. Emitting a brilliant golden light, turning, he controlled Yi Ning's arm. Reversed the sword, then gripped the hilt with one hand. Look closely, this old man will teach you a lesson. This lesson is called establishing authority. As he spoke, he thrust his sword into the ground. In an instant, a powerful sword aura enveloped the entire palace. However, this sword chi didn't cause any substantial damage to them. But it is to break the literary courage that they painstakingly cultivated. Broken scrolls were found, and all kinds of curses echoed in Yi Ning's ears. Tai Xiang Chao Wenyan murmured beside him. These people are probably never going to have a relationship with Confucianism again in their lives. Jianling continued to control his body at this time, saying that this was just a test of Fang Jingjian's inner self. Those with filthy hearts, insatiable greed, and shattered confidence only have themselves to blame. The emperor on the throne saw this, and showed a barely perceptible smile. Unexpectedly, Yi Qing did something for me that I always wanted to do. But she was helpless and could do nothing. At this moment, Lu Xun also pretended to fall to the ground and secretly praised Deepening for doing a good job. This directly leads to a major step forward in the rejuvenation of the Great Zhou dynasty. At this moment, Wei Xian proudly asked Chu to take a big step forward and asked if he had learned the essence of his art. Then, he continued talking to him. His Nien Luke couldn't last much longer, and he would entrust the entire future of Great Zhou to him. Hearing this, Yi Ning was silent for a while. If you don't leave, I don't know what will happen. Lao Niu and the others were really excited at this moment. They didn't expect Master Ye's plan to be like this. He even deceived us. After listening to their conversation, Yi Ning was silent for a moment. That wasn't even his doing. But there was one exception. Under that earth-shattering sword energy, Ouyang Ji finally understood everything. He cursed himself for his self-inflicted fate. In his youth, he had wanted to use all his lifelong knowledge to serve his country, but eventually lost their way in the vortex of power. The eunuch standing outside the door saw his pained expression. Felt extremely astonished. What happened? Something must have happened inside. Then, one by one, officials like him rushed out, shouted loudly, wanting to relinquish all positions. This incident caused the emperor to once again fall silent. And so the conference to punish Yi Ning came to an end. Elsewhere, the emperor sighed with regret. Although he was well loved by the people, how would he cope with this? Hearing this, Xiao Xian felt a little worried. He and the inspection office were now facing the entire world, and they were completely opposed to the Immortal Gate. Just relying on the secret intelligence agency might not be enough to protect him. But Lu Xun didn't think so. He felt this wasn't necessarily a bad thing. We always think about how to hide Yi Ning, but we never thought that we basically couldn't hide his aura. He was born in this era, destined to become the most radiant person. Such a person either ends the chaotic world and becomes a sage, or dies on the path of pursuing ideals, leaving a name for eternity. Yi Ning openly defied the emperor. Such a rebellious act, yet he was not sent to the guillotine. He was even promoted 3 levels in a row. He was promoted to the first rank, and this also caused discontent among a group of officials. Therefore, the emperor gathered his confidants. Calling for an emergency meeting, Lu Xun was the first to speak up, expressing her thoughts. Perhaps the path we have been walking for so long, not entirely correct. And Yi Ning is the one who helps us make up for those shortcomings. For a long time, we have faced enormous pressure, pretending to be a bad emperor, secretly accumulating power, not daring to reveal anything. Therefore, a very serious problem will arise. The old minister once planted a special fruit tree. Legend has it that this fruit tree needs 3 years to accumulate nutrients before it can blossom and bear fruit. To bear the sweetest fruit, this fruit tree hasn't grown for the past 3 years. It didn't even grow leaves. 3 years passed. When he returned to his hometown to visit this fruit tree, he discovered that his family had cut it down. In the eyes of others, an apple tree that does not bear fruit is just a useless tree. In the eyes of the world, Great Chu is that withered tree. As for Yi Ning, she was the only green leaf on the seemingly dead tree. The emperor, after hearing this, already had his answer. He immediately ordered the spread of today's events. I want the world to know that the Great Zhou has not yet perished. There are still people like Yi Ning in the court. There are also other government agencies such as the Procuratorate. The next day, everyone knew that Yi Ning had become the new director of the Procuratorate. This also made his reputation spread further than ever before. Patriots from all over came to his mansion. They loudly praised his greatness, but when they heard their shouts, Yi Ning couldn't help but sigh. At this moment, Wu Sanxi threw him a jug of wine, and asked him why he sighed. Yi Ning told him that he was afraid of disappointing those who had placed their hopes in him. Hearing this, Wu Sanxi suddenly laughed loudly, asking him why he had such thoughts. Hearing this, Yi Ning murmured, "Maybe I am not the person you think I am," placing too much hope in him. Only to receive more disappointment, Wu Sanxi interrupted him. "At least you have let us live no longer like walking corpses. That is also why I invited Wen Xintan to challenge you. Because I believe that in this era, if only one person can become director, it must be you." Hearing this, Yi Ning just felt a little embarrassed. But he quickly reacted. In a flash, he flew into a rage. "You mean the mirror was given by you?" He told Yi Ning that he had only done a small, insignificant thing, being recognized by Wen Xinjing. "It's all your fault." Hearing him say that, Yi Ning was stunned. Does he know what he's talking about? He wondered why a mirror had suddenly appeared. Why did he suddenly become the supervisor? So, it's all because of this seemingly honest and simple man. So you stabbed him in the back. Therefore, he listed the emperor and him as level 1 alert. Lai Lao Neo and his accomplices entered level 2 alert. More importantly, There was a secret person who helped him stop the assassin. We must be especially vigilant. Just as Yi Ning was lost in thought, Tai Xianggao appeared behind him without a sound. Remind him that Gong Yi Tang has opened. Yi Ning looked at him with a little confusion. Wu Sanxi explained that Gong Yi Hall would only open when there was a new supervisor. Is your excellency not curious about the true core secret of the supervisory department? So Yi Ning had arrived at the place called Gong Yi Tang. Wu Sanxi extended an invitation to him. Please have a seat. His expression also made him suspicious. This old man, he seems to know a lot about this place. Afterward, Yi Ning sat in the director's seat under his guidance. Next, the golden rays of light appeared again. This is the message that the previous governors left for their successors. The man who held the biggest secret of the entire dynasty. This is the secret of the Great Zhou that even the current emperor doesn't know. The imperial capital he was in was actually a giant formation, and each chief executive held the power to control the grand formation. Just one thought, and the vast dynasty could collapse in an instant. Although entrusted with an important task, Yi Ning wasn't conceited or arrogant. But it brought a deep sense of guilt. At this time, having absorbed everything, Wu Sanxi asked Yi Ning whether she had received the information left by the first regent. Yi Ning nodded solemnly to him, then asked the question that had been weighing on her mind. What is your true identity? As soon as he finished speaking, silence suddenly fell. Wu Sanxi explained that he was just a nobody. How could an unknown low-ranking official know so much about the procuratorate? Upon hearing this, Wu Sanxi, immediately silent. If you want to know, I will say this. Actually, my real name is Vo Qian. From the imperial palace, Yi Ning recalled the records she had read in books. Very quickly, a bold speculation flashed through his mind. In the second month of the Kintai year, the ancestral precepts of the Tran clan were abolished, alluding to the infiltration of demons and heretics. Emperor Taizu was enraged and dispatched a reconnaissance team by the time the Tianjun army set out. The enemy has been defeated. Zike, with just one scout and one military flag, could cause the enemy's crushing defeat. Xing Tianjun at that time was like the Grim Reaper, Wu Sanxi replied. That's right, and this army was given the surname Wu by Emperor Taizu. But now the Xingtian army is no longer there. The Xingtian army now has become the Yulin army, guarding the inner palace. Xin once served as an imperial guard, protecting the inner palace for Emperor Xian. That day, Xin was patrolling the palace as usual when he suddenly heard a cry for help. When I ran there, I discovered that it was a disciple of the Xingqian sect. Was about to humiliate a young woman, but she refused. He was immediately angry, killing this beautiful woman. At that time, the Great Zhou was paying tribute to Xianzong. But he thought that even if he killed this beautiful woman, even in our Great Zhou, no one dares to touch him. Others fear him, but I do not. I am the commander of the Imperial Guard. This deity only did what I should have done. Afterward, Xingqingzong made things difficult. Xiandi became furious and abolished this deity's cultivation, forbidding me from stepping into the Imperial Palace for the rest of my life. Therefore, I was exiled to the Procuratorate. In my free time, I started cultivating swordsmanship. He has achieved something now. His story made Yi Ning sigh at the unfairness of fate. Since he was stripped of his cultivation, his achievement in swordsmanship is already considered a genius. This old Vo. Yi Ning solemnly told him that the humiliation he had suffered, he would one day get back for him. The Procuratorate would no longer be afraid of anyone. And on the other side, in a garden, a man in black, holding a long whip, reprimanded the man in front of him. Your actions almost broke the master's taboo. Not only did he take on the task of assassinating the Duke of Oiwu on his own accord, but the mission also failed, resulting in the loss of more than half of the assassins from Spring Wind Tower. The man who was beaten immediately knelt on the ground, kowtowing and begging for forgiveness. The man in black snorted coldly. Killing so many of our people. This debt must be repaid eventually. The day the creditor went to the capital was the day he died. Outside the government office, Yi Ning looked at the old coal cellar. He said awkwardly, I'm just doing my job, I really don't need any gifts. He told him that he couldn't forget his kindness, moreover, these were specialties from his hometown that he and his wife had prepared for him, and definitely told him to accept. Then he lifted the curtain of the carriage. But when she saw what was on the car, Yi Ning was completely stunned. The things in the car were not local specialties at all, but a beautiful woman, with a graceful figure, to thank Yi Ning for his help. The man didn't give him gold, silver, or jewels, who brought a beautiful fairy-like girl. Looking at the girl in the car, Yi Ning quickly refused, saying that he couldn't accept this gift. However, old man Lu found a bag and brought it over, saying this was the specialty he wanted to give. Inside were some herbs he had collected. This girl was picked up by him while he was gathering herbs. Seeing that she hadn't regained consciousness, he wanted to bring her to the magistrate. Hearing this, Yining was finally relieved. It was just that looking at this woman's attire. Perhaps she is not an ordinary person. Wei Wuntong, an experienced man, now realized she might be a cultivator, but she didn't have anything on her to identify her status. After listening to his analysis, Yining waved his hand. If the old man brought the medicinal herbs, he should treat her wounds first. Wait until she wakes up and then talk to her. But right now, Wu Sanxi suddenly spoke up, saying that she wasn't a good person. And he sensed a stream of demonic energy from that woman. This must be Ma Tuesday. Indeed, upon hearing this sensitive word, everyone froze. Seeing their reaction, Yining asked if they were afraid of the demonic cultivators. Wei Wuntong explained that it wasn't fear, but every time Mo2 appeared, all brought a lot of trouble. Yu Sanxi next to him directly offered the divine sword, Tamanagwai Dao. Show no mercy. Let me kill him. The sword energy immediately awakened the unconscious woman. It's a real murder attempt. Where are we? She quickly sensed that they were facing a martial Dao Grandmaster sword cultivator and a person with a unique bloodline awakening. With her strength, killing those few people in front of her was nothing more than a piece of cake. At this moment, Yining directly blocked the cart. Why did they want to kill her? Do you know her? Wei Wuntong replied. I don't. But evil heretics by nature, Yining interrupted him. Actions are judged by deeds, not by intentions. We don't know what she did, good or bad, but we want to take advantage of her misfortune to eliminate her. What's the difference between us and them? Upon hearing this, Wu Sanxi immediately retorted. How can a demonic cultivator be a good person? If we don't kill him now, he might kill people when he wakes up. This sentence also echoed constantly in Yining's mind. And yet, there was an unexpected harvest. So he asked them back. Where did such a misconception come from? Wei Wuntong replied, I have always been a righteous cultivator opposing the demonic cultivators. Next, Yining told them to think about it. The so-called demonic cultivators of the immortal sects, their cruelty was killing. They are just as greedy and insatiable. How many people have died for the immortal path in this world? Cultivators treat mortals like weeds. Isn't that more cruel than demonic cultivators? According to Yining, the difference between immortals and demons lies only in their cultivation methods. Just like a sword, some people use it to harm others, while others use it to save people. We judge the good and the bad by the person who wields the sword, not the sword itself. His perspective not only changed the thinking of Wei Wenfeng and his group, and also received the consent of the demonic cultivator Zhu Ke, who was pretending to sleep next to him. Next, he stepped forward and embraced the woman. Such action in their eyes. Yining, moved by a flicker of human compassion, explained to himself that he simply wanted to help her. What are you guys looking at? A top dignitary wanted to kill Yining. He was a clumsy person. Yet he managed to gather all the feudal lords from all over the country to hold a grand conference to discuss the punishment. Marshal Oi Vu glared at the feudal lords present and said sternly, Today I have invited you here to discuss how to eliminate that troublesome Yining. Just as he finished speaking, the vassals immediately clamored in response. He should have been dealt with sooner. A measly procuratorate dares to rebel? Let's go see His Majesty and ask him to punish the censorate. He had just finished speaking. The person next to him shook his head and said no. You haven't noticed that His Majesty always protects Yining? A few days ago, there was such a big commotion in court. It all came to nothing. Marquis Wu snorted coldly. Probably when the sixth prince coerced the emperor, Yining helped him out. He had good feelings for Yining, which was normal. Someone suggested. I remember that the founding duke has a magic item called the soul-stealing blade. Is it possible to kill an invisible person? Guigong, who had been silent, was suddenly startled. I do indeed possess a magical artifact called the soul-sucking blade, passed down from my ancestors who went to war 1,000 years ago. Obtained from the Wudu sect, this object, once activated, will drain the blood of all living beings within a 5-mile radius. Turned into a desiccated corpse, the greatest advantage of this treasure is that when it is activated. Silently, Marquis Oi Vu's eyes lit up after hearing this. He immediately decided to use it. However, the Duke hesitated, saying that this artifact required a great deal of spirit stones to operate. My residence isn't big enough. Please contribute generously, outside the procuratorate. People streamed in endlessly, even breaking down the main gate. It turned out they were all talented people who wanted to apply for the important position at the procuratorate because of the omen. And they all chanted Yining's name. The adoration for him had reached its peak, so he summoned a magic weapon. Those who join the procuracy must always remember to be dedicated and honest. He said first, if anyone still has selfish interests, it's not too late to leave now. No one in the yard left. Yining smiled faintly. Immediately afterward, he channeled his righteous aura into the treasure. A dignified voice boomed from inside. Why did you join the Procuratorate? Some say they want to save all living beings. Some admired Yi Ning. There were even insiders who reported directly. Witnessing this scene, Lao Neo and Wei Wentong couldn't help but sigh. If you don't look into it, you won't know. After the inspection, Yi Ning looked at the two fools being taken away and was speechless. They are waiting to kill him. This is a daydream. Elsewhere, a ragged beggar kept knocking on the door of the Yi residence. Then, he took out a delicate kerosene lamp. To get some food, kind old Huang didn't even think about taking the lamp. He turned around to prepare food for him. But the beggar suddenly stopped him. His eyes flashed a strange green light, controlling the old man's mind, enticing him to bring the lamp inside. Old Huang heard that, and without any hesitation, took the oil lamp and went inside. As the beggar instructed, he placed the oil lamp in the living room. It wasn't until he closed the door and left that he felt something was wrong. I have absolutely no idea why I'm here. Observing for a while, Lao Huang shook his head, sighing that he was indeed old. His memory was fading. After Huang Lao left, the oil lamp suddenly emitted a strange black gas. And in the living room, it was none other than the female demon cultivator who had been picked up that day. Yi Ning is just an ordinary mortal who is caught up with the big characters, considered a thorn in their side that must be eliminated. Even the mysterious immortal sect wants to kill him. As instructed by her sect, Fan Qingxue contacted her long-lost father. They also offered a very high reward. However, the opportunity comes only once, previously offered to Wei Wuhou. If he cannot successfully eliminate Yi Ning, his disciples will take action. After hearing his daughter's words, Marquis Yu guarantees this time will be different. He is 10 times more certain to kill Yi Ning. Fan Qingxue said nothing after listening, and hung up after saying goodbye to Wei Wuhou. At this moment, Wei Wuhou's face beamed with joy. Because as long as he completes this mission, he will obtain the legendary Ascension Pill. As he was about to embark on the path to becoming a celestial being, Wei Wuhou held a celebration feast beforehand. However, the person with the greatest contribution in this campaign. He seemed a bit down, responding awkwardly to the flattery around him. Seemingly noticing Wagong's anxiety, the man jokingly asked if he felt guilty about killing Yi Ning. The Duke hastily replied, "No, I have chosen Xianmen. Of course, he is from the Immortal Gate." The banquet ended, and the Duke was helped back to the Duke's mansion by his servants. Looking at the 4-character sign outside the door, Wagong felt a complex and indescribable emotion flash through his heart. These words were personally inscribed by Emperor Taizu. Bestow upon the ancestors. Thinking of this, the Duke sighed. Then, a word, "Father," interrupted his thoughts. The black-haired young man angrily walked out of the door. "Where have you been?" asked the Duke, noticing the sword in the young man's hand, rarely seen in such a rage. "Who allowed you to touch my Ko-Trung sword?" he said as he reached out to grab the long sword. "This is the important treasure that Emperor Taizu bestowed upon our Mu family." The boy freed himself from his father's grip and replied, "I certainly know." "Then tell me," his father said, "did you go to Marquis Yu's residence to harm Master Yi?" The Duke was astonished and asked, "How do you know that father truly wants to harm Lord Yi? Do you remember that father is the Duke of Founding? Do you remember the ancestral instruction? The lineage of the Duke has always been about generals dying in battle, but no coward surrendered." Guogong, after listening, slapped the boy. "Everything we do is for the Mu family." The young man gave a cold laugh, stood up again. "Father, do you know that even the common people outside know now? Has the Duke of Tai betrayed the great Chu? I will absolutely not allow you to harm Yi Duren like this." The Duke only moved his hand slightly, releasing a series of spiritual energy. "You are not going anywhere today." The young man instantly lost consciousness after being attacked. The Duke ordered his servants to carry his son to the study to rest. Looking at the young man being carried away, the Duke sighed. "For the sake of House Mu's 50,000 troops, I had no choice but to make this decision. But you are right. I am indeed a coward, but I have no way back. You still have a long way to go. If Yi Ning can survive this ordeal, I will also give the world an explanation." Inside the prosecutor's office, Yi Ning had been busy with daytime recruitment until now, but beside him, Xian felt. "It's good to work overtime here. The best thing is to be so busy that you forget about that girl." The adopted daughter, she was simply a bit pretty. On beauty. She thought she was no less beautiful than her, just a bit smaller in some parts. Yi Ning wondered, what's wrong with this child? At this moment, a dark figure pushed the door open and entered. "Brother Yi, I have a big gift for you." Hearing this, Yi Ning had a bad feeling. Then Tai Hung Chao called out, "Please come in." The Yi brothers, these are the righteous people scattered everywhere that we recruited under the name of the Procuratorate. This made Yi Ning shiver. How can you not know anything about this? He replied. This is a surprise for Yining. What a surprise. Is this what you call a surprise? Thank you so much. These people are different from the previous group. Yining can clearly feel the special aura radiating from them. He really can't refuse them. But he still summoned the Wenxinjing to challenge them. But they were not flinched. Facing the challenge of the mind mirror, Tai Xianggao smiled and turned to look at Yining. Congratulations, brother Yi. No one was eliminated in this challenge. Seeing this, Yining extended his hand in a goodwill gesture. Welcome to the prosecutor's office. From today onwards, all of you from the procuratorate. We must be dedicated to our work. Fair law enforcement, not to disappoint our ancestors, not to disappoint Chief Censor, not failing the people of the great show. The system says Yining died before he could win the championship. But he is living very well. So, to be able to die a little faster, Yining cursed the emperor. He criticized the civil and military officials, while also gathering a group of talented people to be his subordinates. But those middle-aged men were too enthusiastic. So she kept him chatting all night, not knowing whether dying of exhaustion would meet the system's requirements. But the woman he picked up still hasn't woken up. Hearing this, Xian replied sarcastically. I just looked in from outside, and her complexion seems to have improved a lot. And on the other side, the soul-slaying blade released a continuous flow of dark energy. But that black energy, he was again absorbed by Ma Tu, who was still asleep. It turned out she had a Qing Xa snake that could absorb all the poison in the world. At that moment, Ma Tu suddenly opened his eyes. This is the breath of destruction that captivates the soul. Then, she stood up and looked for the source of the breath. She is smart, and quickly understood the situation. It seems I have unintentionally saved someone's life. Fine, I, Pei Yuhan, have never owed anyone a favor in my life. Having said that, she shattered the evil aura in front of her. This time, consider it all paid back, your favor. The moment soul-severing blade shattered, the Duke spat out a mouthful of blood. His soul-severing slash was actually destroyed, and he immediately let out a relieved smile. This also proves that Yining is still alive. Perhaps this is the will of heaven. After that, Guigong came from the ancestral hall. This first cup of wine. Respect ancestors, your unworthy descendant Mu Lun has failed the ancestral teachings, committing a shameful act. I am ashamed of my ancestors. This second cup, I raise it to the first ancestor of the Kai Guigong lineage, Tai Zhu. I should be worshipping him alongside the imperial family, but instead, I am a dog chasing after the Xian men. Offended the emperor. This last cup to Master Yi, because of your existence, could only reflect my cowardice, weakness, and shamelessness. Yet I only dared to secretly harm you. I am ashamed to be the leader of Xuanji. He drained the glass of strong liquor. Kuan-Ning, you have grown up. I hope you will remember this enthusiasm. May you live a life without regrets. I hope you won't be like me, he said without hesitation. His sword slashed across her throat. On the other side, Wei Wuho was informed that Yining was still alive. He flew into a rage, kicking the steward who brought the news away. He was cursed to leave and get out of sight, the damn Kai Guigong. Fan Qingshua's melodious voice echoed from the mirror. He dares to betray us? Give your father one last chance. If he still can't kill him, then forget about the immortal elixir. This statement scared Marquis Wei Wu to death. He hurriedly responded that this time he would definitely succeed. Then, Wu Ho summoned Shen San Bai, ordering him to go to Yen Yulu to find Mu Xianxing again, no matter the cost. He had to kill Yining. Shen San was horrified and said yes. Though he was dissatisfied, he could only grit his teeth. He arrived at the place he hated. At this moment, he met Mu Guaning, who was in a panic. Guaning knocked on the door of the Yi mansion soon after. Master Yi, are you still alive? Soon after, Yining appeared at the door, looking at him with a helpless expression. Don't shout anymore, I'm still alive. Seeing him, Guaning immediately breathed a sigh of relief. That's good, you're okay. Immediately after, he grabbed Yining's shoulders and shook them hard. Master Yi, someone is trying to harm you. Afterward, Yining brought him into the residence. From his story, he learned everything. Hearing his intention, you shouldn't be alive now. Could it be that someone audacious enough saved you? Thinking of this, Yining asked him back why he told him this. Aren't you afraid your father will punish you? Guaning shouted excitedly. Not afraid. A real man has things he should do and things he shouldn't do. Father-son love cannot overcome morality. If father insists on killing Grandmaster Yi, what's wrong with me turning against him? His unwavering resolve made Yining fall silent. Brother, she said, you truly put me in a difficult position. But the soul-devouring slash you mentioned, it's still here, isn't it? Then, Yining excitedly walked towards the living room, completely ignoring Guaning who was stopping me beside him. But at this moment, A shattered soul was thrown out. Are you looking for this? He was the leading traitor who caused the collapse of the Great Zhou. Also the most loyal founding duke of the Great Zhou. But it was not until his death that the secret was revealed to the world. Knowing Wu Wuho's plan, Xuetu couldn't help but admire her. Marquis Yu Wu is really persistent. Fat Face explained that Marquis and the Yi family were like fire and water, and this time, Marquis was prepared to offer 10 times the price. Bald Head was just told about that price. Her eyes widened. Then he turned around and asked for instructions from his boss, Shin-san. At this time, Fatty Face also noticed the figure behind him, who turned out to be the head of the Yenwu Lu. Then, a hoarse voice came from under the black robe. I believe that if Wu Yuho has spoken, then it can be done. After all, he has the Jade Pavilion behind him. This case, we take it at the Yenwu Lao. The man watched Shinsan Yanpang leave, sneered, and thought. I was originally planning to kill Yining, but I didn't expect Wei Wuho to take the initiative to give this seat a Feng Dai. Has there been any news from the Lord Baldy? We have tried to search many people but still have no news about the Lord. Could it be that Master has encountered some trouble? Either he hasn't arrived in the capital yet, or Chui, his actions are unfathomable. It's pointless for us to speculate here. First, take care of the immediate task at hand. Use Yining's head to welcome the Master. On the other side, Yining looked at you with a little surprise. You're awake. Bui Vuham said with amusement. I can't wake up. Yining replied to her, of course, I just didn't expect you to wake up so quickly. Lao Wu said before that your injury would take a long time to heal. Isn't it because his father sent someone to bring this little toy to my room? So I was able to recover so quickly. Guaning listened with a bewildered expression. You mean this thing is the soul absorption slash? He then picked up the shard on the ground, completely unable to sense any spiritual energy on it. Did you destroy the soul absorption slash? Hearing this, Pei Yuhan licked her lips. I have absorbed all the power of the curse within me. Why keep it if it's not going to be destroyed? Yining cursed inwardly. You're even absorbing the power of the curse. No, I picked you up to do this? You are a demonic cultivator. To sleep is all that can save me, but he quickly calmed down. The one who wants to die is only you. If she wasn't here with this soul absorption slash, the dead might not be just you. Therefore, Yining clasped his hands together and sincerely thanked the girl. She waved her hand, telling him not to worry. You saved me once, I saved you once. Consider it even. Her words made Yining feel that she wasn't what he thought. On the contrary, it was very clear about gratitude and resentment. At this moment, the Duke's servant came to the mansion and found Guaning. Shouted that something bad had happened, that something had happened to the Gong family. Come with me quickly to see, he said. Hearing this, Guaning was stunned. When he returned to the Guagong manor, he saw a cold corpse. Looking around, Beiyuhan quickly concluded that it was a suicide. Guaning looked at Fubo in anguish. Tell me what happened. Fubo explained that Duke Gua had never wanted to betray the masses. He always had unspeakable suffering. The so-called big tree attracts the wind. The Kaigua lineage being targeted by the Xian men was also inevitable. The immortal sect used the power of the Zich DM army under the command of the National Duke to intimidate him, forcing the National Duke's family to side with them. To protect the Zich Nan army, the National Duke had no choice but to do something against his own will. Duke Gua ended things this way to apologize to Duke Kaigua. Minister Yi, this imperial decree is Duke Gua's apology to you. Inside, it records all the forces in the capital. They had surrendered to the Xian men, along with all the crimes they had committed. This is the last wish of the Duke, also hoping that Master Yi can forgive him. Next, Yining stepped forward to help Fubo up. This grand ceremony of the Duke, I accept. These are the names of the Xianmen's hunting dogs. No one was allowed to escape, but very quickly, Yining suddenly remembered the Red Flame army that Fu Ba had mentioned. Guanan reminded him. If the Xianmen knows that Lord Yi is not dead, they will surely think that your father betrayed him. They will definitely attack the Qi Yan army. Hearing this, Yining asked him where the Red Flame army was currently located. Guanan told Yining that they were setting up camp 30 miles from the city. Therefore, Yining did not hesitate any longer. He immediately left the city. To save countless pillars of the nation. The Duke himself has vowed to fall into depravity, becoming a hunting dog for the Immortal Gate. But when he was no longer useful, Xian men still did not hesitate to slaughter 50,000 Xian troops. Upon hearing the news, Yining immediately rode to the camp, until he saw the flag flying high. Could it be that the Red Flame troops haven't been killed yet? Therefore, a group of people charged into the camp on horseback. But the thing that was seen, corpses were everywhere, making Yining tremble. Wei Wentian patrolled around and told him that no one was alive in the camp. While patrolling, he found that the place had been tampered with beforehand. The moment the mechanism was activated, Everyone was caught off guard. Everyone died. Hearing this, Guaning collapsed and knelt on the ground. At this moment, he truly understood. How great my father is! He cried out to the sky in frustration, venting all the resentment in her heart. At that moment, Yining slapped him away. Ask him what he is doing. Are you afraid? Look closely. Look at these 50,000 wronged souls. And there is also the founding duke. They are all watching. What will you let them see? Crazy remorse or fear? You have no right to regret now. Never be afraid because you shoulder. It was no longer a personal loss, but the glory of the entire Kaigwagong lineage. Hearing this, Guaning asked me loudly what to do now. Yining told him, of course, to regain the glory that Kaigwagong had lost. To avenge the blood debt of the Red Flame Army. An eye for an eye. His chickens came home to roost. An immediately shouted at the people behind him. I have to deal with these scum. On the other side, as soon as he heard that Yining had returned, Wu Wu Ho went crazy, unable to kill him. Then go find your own death. He roared at the thousands of retainers in his mansion. Mobilize all forces, intercept and kill Yining. Whoever kills Yining will be rewarded with 1,000 gold pieces. Hearing the news, Xiao Tianshan rarely cursed, and at the same time dispatched a gold medal assassin. Protect Yining's safety at all costs. In the Imperial Palace, the Emperor has also issued an Imperial Edict. Dispatching troops to protect Yining, the general's face was full of bewilderment upon hearing the order. I don't know which army your majesty wants to order. At this time, the Emperor also woke up. It seemed that apart from the Qian army, the remaining armies had all joined the Xianmen. But very quickly she decided to mobilize the Imperial Guards to leave the city and protect Yining. On the other side, the people in the city saw Yining riding his horse like the wind. Everyone was terrified. It seemed another visitor was about to have bad luck. At this moment, a group of people in black hiding in the darkness stepped out. A man suddenly jumped up, slashing down at Yining's head. With a whoosh, Wei Wentong suddenly appeared beside him. Swinging the curved blade, the man in black was cut in two. The next moment, an angry roar erupted from the crowd, and men in black rushed out. In this situation, Yining called Lao Niu, who possessed intellectual leadership, and gave him command of this battle. Lao Niu received the order, shouted a congratulation, then yelled at the hundreds of guards from the procuratorate behind him. Follow me to kill the enemy. Then he charged forward. He grabbed the two men in black and threw them towards the man who had just shouted. How dare those rabble challenge us? The bodyguards of the procuratorate were no less impressive. Everyone can defeat 100 enemies, the strength of the procuratorate. Which made the surrounding audience incredibly amazed and cheered for the procuratorate. The masterminds behind the scenes, after realizing the situation was completely one-sided, flew into a rage and berated the others. Hurry up and bring out your trump card. If Yining hadn't died, the dead one will be me. On the other side, when the Imperial Inspectorate's guards kill the leader, a ball of fire suddenly shot out from another direction. The man, seeing this, hurriedly swung his saber to block it. However, his battle-tested broadsword shattered. The origin of the attack came from above. At this time, the people also realized. The one who appeared in the sky is a person from the Xianmen. Because he wanted to eliminate the thorn in his side, Yining. 8 immortals were dispatched from Xianmen at the same time. Among them, the most powerful one has reached the heavenly mandate realm, while the weakest one has attained the true person realm. However, Wu Sansi and the others did not pay any attention to them. Let them see what it means to be reckless. On the other hand, for the sake of future glory and wealth, people kept rushing towards Yining with swords, trying to kill him. But those newly recruited guards did not give them a chance to approach him. Bui Vuham also felt a little surprised. This man was truly astonishing. Although now is a great time to risk death. But if Yining dies now, it will not only disappoint those who risked their lives to protect him, cannot give an explanation to the unjustly killed people of the Qian army. At this moment, a rough voice rang in his ear. It turned out to be a group of people who spontaneously formed a small team to protect Yining's safety. Indeed, he shouldn't have had any hope of dying. These people, although dressed in the clothes of the procuratorate, each possessed strong abilities. Since when did the procuratorate have so many experts? Could it be a surprise that this kid, Tai Xiangao, has for him? It seemed that Tai Xiangao noticed his gaze. He came to Yining's side and told him that since they had gained the upper hand in this battle, they might as well compose another poem. Seeing them off for a while, Yining suddenly thought that the literati of this world were not only weak scholars but could also use pens as swords and ink as blades. To show his power to kill the enemy, thinking of this, he controlled the literary tool with one hand, transforming into countless sword images. At the same time, recited the poem about the warrior general that every family knows. At night, the bow is drawn. At dawn, the elephant's tracks are sought. In the stone forest, Bui Vuham looked at the spirit swords covering the sky. To my astonishment, he is a Confucian genius. Those who were fiercely engaged in battle all stopped at the same time, looking towards the dense lights in the sky. But before they could effectively counterattack, his heart was pierced by those golden rays of light. The overwhelming power also frightened the vassal lords who stood behind him. Yining was a grand scholar, but since the holy temple was sealed, the world could not produce a grand scholar. We have awakened a monster that can ignore the seal of the holy sea. Bui Vuham, with his vast knowledge, realized that Deep Nin was not a great scholar at all. He was merely accumulating literary energy and righteous aura in his body, reaching the level of a grand scholar. Thinking of this, she suddenly laughed. It's hard to imagine, if the Holy Institute is liberated, Confucianism will reappear. What achievements could Yining reach? Yining looked at the power he displayed and couldn't help but be surprised. It turned out that he had inadvertently become so powerful. Immediately afterward, he ordered the Procurator's bodyguards to clean up the battlefield. He assigned some people to take charge of the city gate. After finishing all of this, Yining rode his steed. Fi withdraws the water towards another destination. In the Wuho mansion, every servant of the Wuho mansion was packing up their luggage. Panicked, he fled. This angered Oi Vo Hao, who had become isolated, and he pounded on the door relentlessly. He poured out all his dissatisfaction, then suddenly called out the name of his most loyal subordinate. But when he turned around, he could not find her familiar figure. A furious roar echoed throughout the Marquis Wu's residence. Then, he threw his weapon and sat back in his place. Others fear you. I am not afraid, but when he opens his eyes again. The sharp words could not be uttered. It turned out that Yining had led the elite of the Procuratorate to surround his Wuho mansion without any gaps. The cries of anguish outside the manor also sent chills down Wuho's spine. He had barely arrived and already laid hands on someone in my residence. Is this the conduct of your esteemed Procuratorate? Yining sneered at him. Because my mood isn't good, Wuho momentarily couldn't believe the explanation he just heard. Gather up your courage and ask again. At this moment, Yining's expression changed, and he told him word by word. Because I'm in a bad mood. Others, when solving a case, must submit it to the Emperor for review. Yining told me to solve cases based on my mood again. It turns out that being a king, marquis, general, or Oi Vu Hao not only involves rampant corruption. He also ordered the massacre of 50,000 Qian troops. Just hearing this news was enough to enrage Yining, who vowed to eradicate all corrupt officials. He looked at the Oi Wu Ho in front of him, who was avoiding his gaze, and said coldly, You have awakened me to the reality of this world, making me realize it's not just a game for my own amusement. And the one who was killed will die. In panic, Wu Ho admitted his crime. He, himself, ordered the killing of 50,000 soldiers of Qian. But what does this have to do with you? The Kaigwa Gong dared to betray us. This is the price he has to pay. Is it really for 50,000 unrelated people? So you dare to wage war against us? Hearing this, Guaning stepped forward, grabbed Oi Vu Hao by the collar. 50,000 lives in your mouth, they become mere weeds. My father just doesn't want to be complicit with you. What has he done wrong? Hearing this, Yining reached out to stop Guanan, saying that reasoning with this person was like reasoning with a beast. Someone seize him for me. Being restrained, Wu Wu Ho still did not understand his situation. Bao Deepening, he will pay the price sooner or later. This is Niu Jingxi, a slap in the face of Wu Ho. Before Wu Ho could react, another punch landed on his stomach. I told you to shut up. Why didn't you listen? After changing into your prisoner's clothes, Grand Marshal Oi Vu protested loudly. How dare you humiliate this marshal? Let me wear this out. Yining looked at him with a surprised expression. Could it be that the condemned prisoner was on the way to the execution ground? Shouldn't you be wearing shackles? Hearing the two words, death row inmate, Oi Vu Hao was full of disbelief, legs weak and trembling. He even collapsed directly onto the ground. Seeing him like that, Yining also told him to stop struggling. With me here, no one can save him. At this moment, Yu Ho finally couldn't hold back anymore and wailed miserably. Experiencing these things isn't limited to just I alone. Why kill only me? Yining handed him the list of the Duke and said, These people, I won't spare a single one. Wu Yu Ho called you a man. Just because they are 50,000 ordinary people, they are 50,000 lives, and moreover, they are soldiers of the great Zhou dynasty. Now swallow those two words, brat, for me. At this moment, Wei Wentong emerged from the Wu Ho mansion. My lord, I have found an artifact. Bui Vuham glanced and recognized what Wei Wentong brought. It is the Tianhai Jing of Chuanyu Pavilion. Next, she raised her hand to activate the magic artifact. Immediately after, A woman with a cool appearance appeared in the mirror. Yi Ning knew this was Fang Qingxue, the woman that Wu Yuho mentioned. Therefore, he coldly told her, "Your father is currently being paraded. Wait until his accomplices are arrested and brought to trial, then he will be dealt with according to the law." Fang Qingxue completely didn't care about her father's death. At the same time, tell Yi Ning to think carefully about what she is doing, as well as what the consequences would be. Hearing her threat, Yi Ning smiled dangerously. "Countless people want to kill me. Who do you think you are?" Fang Qingxue replied coldly. "Very good." Next, the magic treasure exploded into pieces right in front of Yi Ning. Although the explosion of the mirror didn't cause him any injuries, it gave him a new understanding of this woman. But this basically couldn't stop what Yi Ning was about to do next. "Brothers, let's go to the next house." Yonghua residence, news of his exploits quickly reached the emperor. And the next destination for Yi Ning was even more troublesome. The Duke of Vin, however, was a Dan Shu Tai bestowed upon him by the founding emperor. Before she could think of a way to help Yi Ning deal with the aftermath, the eunuch outside reported to her that Yi Ning had captured the Duke, and was on his way to the Jing family mansion. The last emperor finally couldn't take it anymore. What does he want to do over there? Jing family's householder had been waiting outside for a long time. At the same time, invite Yi Ning and her group into the house for tea. There is no need for tea. If you really want to drink it, please come with me to the supervisory office. Even the people standing outside waiting to watch the play were surprised, because in their perception, the Jing family are not bad people. The current head of the Jing family also stood up. "My family has strict rules and acts righteously. The virtue of a gentleman. I don't know why you arrested me. Could it be that my Jing family has offended you in some way, causing you to take personal revenge?" He had just been confident that he was in the right. The man who had fought his entire life was, in the next moment, confronted with the evidence presented by Yi Ning, scared out of her wits. It turned out, so that the late Kai Guogong and 50,000 Qian troops. An explanation. Yi Ning searched the homes of all the civil and military officials. To this solemn old man in front of him, he said, "This official always speaks with evidence." Next, he took out the list that Kai Guogong had entrusted to him. This object was obtained by a respectable person who, at the cost of their honor, worked undercover among you, trading their life for this intelligence. And those who had fallen into the net, at this time, also reacted. The owner of this list was Kai Guogong. However, he remained indifferent. Saying that he knew nothing, Yi Ning sneered at him coldly. "Kai Guogong, for the great Chu. To endure and blend in with you, is to exchange for this evidence. You are outwardly righteous. Conspired with evil cults behind his back, anticipating the evil deeds they would commit. It's enough to kill them 100 times. The people who are watching now finally understand. It turns out they have misunderstood Kai Guogong all this time. Kai Guogong is not corrupt at all. Instead, he sacrificed his small interests for the greater good. Long live the founding duke." Guaning saw Yi Ning's actions. She trembled uncontrollably. Then she knelt down in front of him. "Long live the Duke of Kaigua. Thank you for your generosity, sir." Yi Ning patted his shoulder. "No need to thank me, I just want everyone to know. A truth that should not be buried. Look at those people, they long for more than anyone a founding father who is still trustworthy. The next path will be created by you." After officially arresting him, Yi Ning shouted to go to the next house. Soon, corrupt officials of all ranks in the capital. They were all caught by him, while the treacherous officials wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to flee, were also unfulfilled. Similarly, they were ambushed by the Supreme Prosecutor's Office experts. Catch, see? Every noble family, once at the top of the world, was apprehended. People on the street all praised Yi Ning's merits. As for the corrupt officials in the dynasty, they were pelted by the populace with all kinds of rotten vegetables. At this moment, a man stepped in front of Yi Ning and reported that all the people on the list had been captured, without anyone escaping. Immediately, Yi Ning shouted an order for them to head to the execution ground. Hearing this, the last bit of hope in their hearts was completely shattered. "Yi Ning, do you really want to confront the Six Nations and the Immortal Sect? You dare to kill us, the Six Nations and the Immortal Sect will absolutely not let it go. The Great Chu will also be punished because of you." Yi Ning coldly glanced at him and said, "The Great Zhou dynasty is protected by the capital's grand formation. If the Immortal Sects want to attack the Great Zhou dynasty, they need to consider whether they have the power to do so. As for wanting to kill me, come on." Bui Nok Ham heard Deep Nin's words, his eyes lit up. Fighting against the Immortal Gate has no way to retreat, if you can't move forward. Would crumble like a landslide. If everyone had been as brave as he was that year, perhaps we did not fail. Not long after, around the execution ground, countless people gathered to witness this scene. Even the emperor opened his magic tool to watch directly. Then Yining shouted, "Bring the prisoner up!" In an instant, the sound of regret echoed throughout the execution ground. "Only Marquis will you, like a man," questioned Yining. "Do you want to drag the entire Great Chu to bury with you?" Yining looked straight into his eyes and replied, "Isn't it true that the Dezhou dynasty has been dragged down by you for a long time now? Could it be that if we don't kill you, the Great Zhou will be restored to a prosperous and wealthy Great Zhou? Will you not continue to oppress Dezhou if I do not kill you? I kill you, to let those who still believe in justice and righteousness see a ray of hope, seeing that this world still has our procuratorate, is upholding justice and fairness." Together with Yining throwing the token out, the executioner raised the executioner's sword in his hand. The next moment, a cold light flashed. The life of Oi Vu Hao ends here. This is a dynasty with a history of corruption for thousands of years. But the arrival of Yining transformed this place into a paradise that everyone yearned for. Even the current emperor was a little startled. Regarding this enormous and uncontrollable change, Lu Xun said he wanted the Great Zhou to be revived. "It must have been through countless difficulties, and the path we have taken may not be the right one." The emperor understood that Lu Chan was implicitly supporting Deep Nin. "But our efforts all this time, could it be wasted?" Lu Xun replied to her, "The strength accumulated before is not useless. If we use this power to support Yining, what if he walked the same path that he did?" The emperor listened. Looking at his image in the mirror, surrounded by countless people, he saw that countless people had lost faith in the Great Zhou. Because of Yining's appearance, there is new hope. Even Guiyunzhou was sparkling because of his appearance. At this moment, the last emperor wavered in all his convictions. Could it be, as Lu Xun had said, Yining's path is new? However, Lu Xun reminded the emperor at this time, there is no way to scheme. Yining has caused such a big problem. It's uncertain whether he can be protected. Afterward, the emperor assigned Lao Lu to the task. Over here, Yining requested, "Tell me about the Holy Temple." But he also quickly remembered from the original owner's memories that it was already the deserted place. But Lao Lu told him, the Holy Institute could still be entered. The Holy Institute just consumes national fortune every time. Moreover, only a person of great talent, virtue, and absolute loyalty. Having just entered, His Majesty thought, Yi and Tai are exactly such people. With Master Ye's talent, after entering, he will certainly obtain a fortuitous opportunity. Having overcome the tribulation, Yining finally understood his intentions. This is to push you into the dungeon. Forced to promote, he directly refused his offer. However, Lao Lu directly hugged Yining's leg. "Sir, if you don't go, then I will keep hugging you like this." Despite facing such enthusiastic actions from him, Yining still didn't intend to leave. "Tell him that you really can't agree to this. He has his own thoughts about this." Hearing that, Lao Lu left dejectedly. Tai Xianggao also looked at Yining with confusion. He certainly wouldn't tell him that after his death, he would have the ultimate concealment ability, and he secretly thought, "Wait until I become the Heavenly Emperor. You will all understand on the other side." News of Wei Yuho's death reached Yunyugu. At this moment, Fang Qingxiu arrived at a thatched cottage, begging the master inside to eliminate Yining. A voice came from inside. "A lowly ant isn't worth my effort. However, I have informed the major immortal sections. After all, it's not only me who wants to take his life. This is a good opportunity to warn the great Zhou Emperor. This Dechu Emperor doesn't seem as simple as he appears. Looking at how he treats Yining, I'm afraid the previous image of a foolish ruler was just a pretense. Yining is just a trivial ant. But the Emperor must be in our hands. Any seeds of rebellion must be stifled in the bud." In another development, news of the Bema temple spread throughout the city. It was said that a high monk had come to the capital to hold a Dharma assembly. After learning this news, Yining also felt a little surprised. Unexpectedly, this world also has Buddhism. Tai Xianggao explained, Buddhism gradually took root in the capital after His Majesty's ascension to the throne. Originally from the barren land of Huala, although Huala has an area equivalent to Dazhou, its land is barren and its spiritual energy is thin. The people believe that only through rigorous training can they be enlightened quickly. Therefore, more and more devout Buddhists went to other countries to spread their faith, and Dezhou was naturally also a major target for them. His Majesty, for unknown reasons, was very interested in Buddhism, so he invited Master Yuan Fang of the Shi family to the capital, built the Bema temple for him, and appointed him as the great Dharma master protecting the nation. Yining asked Tai Xianggao, if Buddhism was so highly regarded, why weren't there many followers? Tai Xianggao replied that perhaps the doctrines were too profound, and suggested discussing them with the Grand Master. 3 hours later, Yining discovered from his words the real reason why they didn't have any followers. In short, it's too outdated. much more outdated than my world. The next day, a man in a wide robe and a young monk. Walking in the White Horse Temple, the little monk asked if the emperor was trying to make things difficult for him again. The monk replied that it was not, this trip was to protect someone. But if that person could convert to Buddhism, then, it will not be long before Buddhism is widely spread. This monk, seeking more followers, traveled to Great Chu, home to tens of thousands of commoners. And so that everything can go smoothly, he should have been compassionate. He again became extremely delusional. Indeed, the first thing he did was send an invitation to Yining. His excuse for looking for you was to neutralize the murderous aura around you, to comfort the spirits of the prisoners of war, although Yining did not think those damned souls would be comforted by seeing him. But he couldn't stand Tai Xianggao's constant and immoderate propaganda. Therefore, Yining decided to go in person, firstly to show respect to the Grand Master, two is to give those assassins a chance. Indeed, the Yanwu quickly learned about this news. However, because of the death of the Wu Ho, they were supposed to be paid for their work, but now they won't receive a single penny. But this did not make them cancel the mission, on the contrary, they were even more eager to try. Yining, inadvertently, had become the only light in this world. If he extinguishes it himself, those filled with hope, those chasing the light, how much fear and suffering would he have to endure? The bald-headed man looked at his boss with such an expression, frankly calling him perverted. However, the man didn't mind, on the contrary, he mobilized the entire Yanyu. The next day, outside the Bema temple, the area was packed with people. While most of them came to watch the excitement, there were still some genuine believers. Just as they were debating this, a golden light shone, accompanied by the sound of chanting. Appearing in the sky, only the high monks were illuminated by the Buddha's light. Arriving by air, they soon came into everyone's sight. Under their chanting, a giant phantom glowed with golden light. Appearing behind them, this made the gossiping people become stunned. My appearance made them talk even more. Master Yi has arrived. It seems that this Buddhist sect is indeed a bit deluded. At this moment, the leading monk arrived in front of Yining. I pay my respects to the Grand Prefect. Seeing the love and admiration of the people around him for Yining, he became even more convinced of the thought in his heart. If he could be converted to Buddhism, the light of Buddhism would surely spread throughout his show. At that moment Yining clasped his hands to show his respect. The mage could transcend the dead and the 50,000 Qian army. This official thanks Master. The monk clasped his hands, concentrating on achieving it. As a disciple of Buddhism, this is something that I should do. The Taoist priest, whose surname is Yi, has a compassionate heart, the monk saw. Master Yi has a profound foundation. Hearing this, Yining waved his hand, declining his invitation. The official was not interested. The Taoist did not pay attention to this, continuing to advise Yining to shave his head and become a monk. He thought to himself, in his previous life he was forced by the old woman to read several Buddhist scriptures. He didn't want to continue their fate. At this time, Bui Vuham reminded him from behind. The monk was not pure of heart. Xian was very upset when she heard this. She could clearly walk, yet she lingered at the Yi family, and refused to leave. She acted so close to Yi Diga every day. That's disgusting. Yining cleverly asked Bui Vuham what her intention was. She smiled and replied, because she often infiltrated the demonic path, she was used to this kind of hypocritical people. That monk also had a similar aura. Yining did not understand, looking at them, not knowing what his purpose was. At that moment, the monk continued preaching. As he tossed the rosary in his hand, the beads suddenly became larger, and bursts of golden light emanated from them. The people here are all bathed in the power of that light. Even chronic bone and joint pain is cured. A cheer went up from all around. This made the monk very pleased. Next, it will be your turn to be transformed. But at this moment, he suddenly felt an unusual murderous intent. Just as he was about to check who it was, then he realized that the target of that murderous intent was not him. Therefore, he followed the direction of the killing intent and found Yining's figure. If so, let him suffer a little, it may not be a bad thing. Yining was already on Yan Yulo's execution list. But because of a woman's words, he was put on Yan Yulo's protection list. Just now, the assassin of Yan Yilu, to make this assassination successful, they blended into the crowd, gradually approaching Yining, but he didn't know that his whereabouts. It was discovered by others. Right behind this crowd, a loud explosion suddenly rang out. Startled, everyone looked back. For a moment, the people became chaotic. That is the direction of the Yi family. Tai Xianggao and others immediately thought that this was the work of the Xian men. But Wei Wuntong denied it, saying that if it was the Xian men who did it, they would have directly attacked this place. The Xian men would not have done these strange things. Yining asked him to lead people to watch, to help innocent people who were not able to evacuate in time. Wei Wuotong stood there, motionless. My duty is to protect the Lord. Such matters will naturally be handled. Yi Ning loudly scolded him. The people's business is more important than me. I am very safe here. I told you to go, so just go. What's the fuss? Tai Xianggao also said that Yi Ning was too reckless. But he basically didn't listen, because this explosion was too strange. If it was really aimed at him, then it would be just right to coordinate with the assassin to complete the mission. Just as the crowd was running towards the fire, a man was walking in the opposite direction. The man wearing the conical hat looked at the guards running away from Yi Ning with a look of satisfaction. It was foolish of him to order the bald man behind him to do it. Immediately, several burly men. The knife lunged towards Yi Ning. However, he was not afraid. But on the contrary, seemed excited. But before they could get close to him, within 10 meters, the remaining guards stopped them. At this moment, Yi Ning suddenly noticed the serious expression of Xian beside her. So he affectionately patted her head. I will protect you. Xian looked back at him meaningfully, and thought to herself, I don't need your protection. Clearly, I'm the one protecting you. Then, Yi Ning looked at the assassins. Indeed. They were all slain by the guards. Seeing this, the man in black under the platform shouted, All assassins, come out! At his command, several people disguised as civilians drew their swords and slashed at the people next to them. This incident enraged Yi Ning, and he immediately ordered the guards to arrest them. He himself was not sitting idle. Yi Ning ran into the crowd, right at the moment he passed by the man in black. A sharp blade emerged from his sleeve. Like a venomous snake, coldness enveloped Yi Ning in a flash. Everyone's heart leaped to their throat at this sword strike, because its speed was so fast that they couldn't stop it. Even the assassin himself thought it was the most perfect sword strike he had ever made. As Yi Ning was about to ascend to the throne of Heavenly Emperor, then the long sword suddenly stopped in front of him. He thought he was about to succeed when a cold female voice echoed in his head. Yi Ning looked in the direction of the sound, until he saw the woman crossing her legs and looking at him. Cold sweat immediately broke out. It was the Empress. Bui Nakham, however, had no intention of revealing his true identity. He used his inner voice to tell the man to leave. This old lady is protecting this guy. Hearing that, the other guy was so angry that he spat blood. He fell backward. Witnessing this, everyone was stunned. What the hell is this? But it's the target of the assassination. Yi Ning smelled the familiar scent of betrayal again. The man who fell silently glanced at his lord. My lord, you have given me a difficult problem. I've already killed half of them. What should I do now? Even Otisei would be stumped. This man is known as the god of death of the assassination world. The targets he assassinated. Never having failed yet today, he received the mission to assassinate Yi Ning. But right when he was close to succeeding, he suddenly vomited 3 mouthfuls of fresh blood. He collapsed to the ground, simply because his master told him that Yi Ning was her person. This also made Ling Shiqi very troubled. But to regain some face for his master, he suddenly knelt down in front of Yi Ning. Sincerely say that I was wrong. Lord Yi is wise, fair, incomparably loyal and righteous. He is the most loyal to Daizhou, though I was sent to assassinate you. But in the end, she couldn't bring herself to do it. If she were to attack Yi Darren again, she feared her conscience would never be at peace. Hearing this, Bui Vuham covered her face and chuckled softly. This guy is brain dead. But those who didn't know the truth were stunned. Lin Sure, are you under an illusion? If you are captured, then just wait to die. At this moment, murmurs arose from the crowd. It was said that the leader of the Yanwulu was known for his ruthlessness and heartlessness. Yet, even he could be subdued by Master Yi. I read in ancient books that some assassins gave up their intentions because their assassination targets were great sages. This proves that Master Yi is indeed a great sage. Even assassins can be reformed. What's to say that Lord Yi can't do it? Lord Yi is indeed a sage reborn from ancient times. Even the monk assigned to protect Yi Ning was stunned. He didn't expect this person's character could make the assassin turn around. I underestimated him. And this has made him even more determined, with the intention of introducing Yi Ning to Buddhism. But Yi Ning didn't intend to let it go. He patted the assassin's shoulder, thinking about how to make him change his mind. The assassin's face darkened upon hearing this. He cursed Yi Ning's entire family tree. Seeing that he remained unmoved, Yi Ning fell into deep thought. Such a good opportunity, yet you don't know how to seize it. You are truly unworthy of being an assassin. Therefore, he encouraged him not to give up his purpose today. He's not as good as he thinks. Lanthap that sensed the endless killing intent of her master. He quickly retorted. Your character is like the moon in the night sky, your integrity like the sun shining brightly in the 9th heaven. What Dian does makes people admire him. He flattered her profusely, making even Yi Ning give him a thumbs up. He was still energetic, so he stepped forward and helped him up. He smiled, what he thought was a friendly smile, and said, "You are very ambitious, a true hero. Your martial arts skills are truly rare in this world, and your character is even more so." Thus, they began their endless commercial flattery. Little did they know, both were silently comparing themselves in their hearts, one wanting to die. Someone wanted to kill her. Finally, Ling Shusher could not stand it anymore, waved her hand, and left the crowd. Finally, he didn't forget to remind Yining to be careful. Yining only felt speechless. "Man, are you really an assassin?" Back at the Yanwu Tower, Ling Shusher slammed his fist onto the table in anger. Baldhead rushed in upon hearing the sound. His first question was, "Are you really moved by Yining?" Lian Shichi finally couldn't hold back, landing a left hook on his face. "Convince your grandpa." After giving Baldhead a good beating, Ling Shichi's anger had subsided somewhat. He asked him if he had noticed the woman beside Yining. "The woman is the sovereign who has been out of contact for so long. It was she who told me not to take action against Yining." The bald-headed man looked surprised after hearing that. "The sovereign is a woman? Why is she by Yining's side? If you don't let me kill him anymore, just mentioning Yining." Ling Shusher was so angry that she couldn't help but clench her fists. At this moment, the bald man suddenly guessed that. Could it be that the Lord had his eye on Yining? After this small interlude, Yining also lost the intention of continuing to stay here. He bid farewell to the Grand Master. The monk clasped his hands together. She blamed herself and apologized to him, saying that this matter had nothing to do with him, and was about to leave. But he suddenly said that this matter was related to him. So he relayed the imperial decree that the emperor had given him, instructing him to protect Yining. However, he also frankly said that protecting him was basically not beneficial to their development in the Great Zhou dynasty. As soon as Yining breathed a sigh of relief, then the monk suddenly suggested that he join the Buddhist order. In that case, everyone would have to be wary of him. Yining is very familiar with this kind of seduction. Next, the monk told his junior fellow to bring a set of robes, and gave him a dharma name. It was F.A. Tuesday, but Yining refused to look and turned away. However, the old monk had no intention of giving up. Directly offered a magical tool, preparing to forcibly brainwash him. That enlightened monk coveted Yining, without sparing the best magic weapons to use on him. It turned out that he saw the hope of Buddhism's revival in Yining, so decided to defy everything to help him become a Buddhist. Along with a dazzling beam of golden light, a giant catfish trapped Yining. Tai Xianggao asked the monk loudly, "What are you doing?" Immediately, Sing's bodyguards drew their swords and pointed them at the monk. That villainous name. Witnessing this scene, the common people were also in an uproar. What kind of treacherous high monk is this? How dare you lay a hand on Lord Yi? Following that, the guards of the procuratorate continuously swung their swords, slashing at the Zijin bowl. No matter how much force they used, it also remained unchanged. Monk Huasheng reminded them not to waste any more effort. "This purple gold bowl is a treasure of the Buddhist faith. Only I can touch it. No one can break it," he said. He and the monk behind him immediately disappeared. The next second, he appeared in the Zijin bowl. "Benefactor, you don't want to enter my Buddhist sect. Perhaps you don't understand Buddhism very well," Yining sneered at him. "I feel that you have the air of a bandit. You don't want to join the group, but you are forced up the mountain." But the monk pretended not to hear, striding up to Yining. Continuing to brainwash him with outdated arguments, Yining frankly stated that he wanted to take advantage of him with the intention of proselytizing, praising him as a truly unscrupulous person. Hearing Yining's mockery, the monk's face turned fierce. "If it were like that, then I will not pretend anymore," Master Xuanji started chanting these savage scriptures. At first, Yining didn't understand why he did that. But very quickly, a sharp pain shot through his head. At this moment, Pei Yuhan's expression turned solemn as he looked in this direction. He actually wanted to use Buddha's radiance to enchant Ying. Hearing this, Tai Hung Chao could no longer hold back and swung his fist towards the one who was holding Yining captive. But soon, Bui Vuham's face calmed down again. She thought this monk was really simple-minded. Yining was holding her head, asking him back, "Is this what you call Buddhist salvation? In my opinion, it's just empty and illusory. Now I ask you a question. Let's see if you can answer this." Upon hearing this, the monk thought he had gained some enlightenment, confidently told him to go ahead and ask. Yining then asked, "Can farmers who study Buddhism achieve enlightenment?" He replied, "Of course. Under Buddhism, all beings are equal, nobles included. Farmers are also acceptable. So I ask you, what is the farmer's job? When plowing, how many times is a plot of land plowed? How many seeds are sown each time? When to water? When to weed? How to deal with pests and diseases?" The monk said, "These things are not related. I only help them escape from suffering, no need to understand how to be a farmer. Yi Ning shook his head at him. He doesn't understand farmers. Naturally, he doesn't understand that every seed they sow is their hope for the entire year. I also don't understand the hardship they went through in the field. He couldn't understand their pain and despair when the crops failed. Spending his days chanting Buddhist scriptures in the temple, he understood nothing, yet dared to claim he could help others achieve enlightenment. The monk could no longer sit still. He said, Buddha's teachings do not understand sentient beings. Could it be that you, the benefactor,